can see! This is the Mike Rutherford Show on the Big X.
Sportos, motorheads, geek bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
The Mike Rutherford Show, presented by United Mechanical, your trusted partner for commercial and industrial HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and refrigeration. Call United Mechanical at 502-339-1133.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. It is Monday, March 23rd. This is the Mike Rutherford Show, presented by United Mechanical and Nexus Plus. We're coming to you live from the world-famous University of Louisville College of Business Studios, here in the heart of suddenly chilly, but also sweet, Louisville, Kentucky. College fans, take your career to new heights with an MBA from the University of Louisville. The full-time MBA is an innovative 12-month program that accelerates your career trajectory with convenient in-person evening classes, competitive 11-month paid internship opportunities provided with valuable industry experience. It's the MBA that pays. Get started today, and you could earn your degree in just 1 year. The first step is hopping online and visiting business.louisville.edu to learn more. We are on the air today from 2:33 until 5:30 here on 1450 AM, 96.1 FM, streaming across the land, including on the Big X Sports Radio Louisville YouTube page, airing live on WBNA Channel 21. You know us better as the Big X. It's Mike Rutherford. It's Matt Childress today in for Roman Kelly, as we have much to discuss. Men's basketball season is over. Women's basketball season just got extended about, 35 minutes ago. The Cards headed back to the Sweet 16 after a 69-68 victory over Alabama. They will face second-seeded Michigan. As for the men, it's free agency time. We're talking roster building. Who do you want back? Who do you want gone? Who would you like to bring in? All of that chatter has already started. The Sweet 16 is in full effect now on the men's side. We've got our final 16 teams. Great day of college basketball yesterday. Good day of college basketball on Saturday outside of Louisville losing. Much to discuss, much to hear from you guys on the Gameday Men's Health text line. The number there, as always, 502-414-1450. Come in with your questions, your comments, your concerns, your whatever. We will take it today. Matt Childress in the house today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Always love coming on the show. Always love taking part. Filling in for Roman today. Hopefully he's having a good day, even though, like you said, it's pretty cold and gloomy outside, just like my soul at this moment. But, at the same time, we're still pushing through. I'm having a good day so far. I'm ready to get into the nitty-gritty of it.
I mean, we've done the show several times, and I've got a general sense of where you were headspace-wise with this men's basketball team. So I assume you were like me. You went into this tournament thinking, let's get one. It would be obviously great if we go to the second weekend, but I'm not out here expecting it. This has, and I said this on Twitter when the game was in the closing segments, as I'm in a suit and tie getting ready to leave for my grandma's funeral, which was just, it was you have to laugh about it. It was the only logical conclusion for this season. Felt like what exactly transpired. And it felt that way since, I would say, mid-January on. Yeah, this team's going to go out there. They'll be a 5, 6, 7 seed. They'll beat the team they're supposed to beat in the first round, and then they'll lose to the team that they're supposed to lose to in the second round. For me, it doesn't make it sting any less. Obviously, if you're like a number one overall seed, when we lost in 09 in the Elite Eight, that loss felt different than if you were losing as a 7 seed that had made a run to the Elite Eight. There are expectations and stuff, but it's never just a shrug it off type scenario for me. I used to always refer to the day that the day after we lost in the tournament as the worst day of the year. It wasn't unexpected, but it still stings. Where were you, I guess, mentally with what just transpired?
So, obviously, I'm never going to be happy about a loss now, but I was happy. I felt like the team fought really well and kind of exceeded my expectations in this game. I felt like there was a part of me that felt as if we were either going to, one, come out and shoot the lights out to start out and get really hot, or we're going to come out and get absolutely obliterated in the post, get pushed around, get bullied. And neither of those happened. I feel like they fought well. But I kind of went into this tournament, like you said, feeling at the end of the season, Pat, you just got to go get one. Yeah. You like that. It's not even. It's not the standard. It's not what we want. It's almost a requirement at this point. You have to go and get one. And after we did, I kind of had this feeling that, I don't know, maybe it's apathetic, but I felt like you were kind of playing with house money after that because of how disappointing the regular season was, how disappointing we kind of looked going without Michael, knowing you're going to be playing without Michael. I felt like the floor was not too low, but the ceiling was very low at that point. I wasn't as angry or upset after losing to Michigan State as I felt like I would be. It almost felt like I was happy to see that the team kind of found their defensive identity towards the end to make a game like this competitive. And I felt like if one or two things went your way or went a different way within a Michigan State game, you had a good chance to win. But at the end of the day, it actually did alleviate some of the pressure to me off of not only Pat Kelsey's shoulders, but on the fan base as well in terms of, okay, we saw some improvement throughout the season. You have another year to go out where you're going to have to build the roster from scratch. This was his first season where he got to play with his full roster, and we get to see what Pat Kelsey wants to do in terms of coaching, in terms of construction, in terms of rotations. Now you have the opportunity to go and take that sample size and make it a little bit larger. You have the chance to adapt now.
I don't think that anybody knows how to process this season. And it's why you're seeing so many different opinions flying around social media and the various websites, and I'm sure all the radio shows and podcasts. We are in such a unique spot in a variety of ways. We've never dealt with the things that we've dealt with over the last 9 years. We haven't dealt with the things that we had dealt with over the 3 seasons that preceded Pat Kelsey being hired. We'd never gone through 3 consecutive losing seasons in any of our lifetimes. And then you toss in the scandals that preceded those and all that stuff. And then on top of all of that, you've got this being a brand new era of college basketball and how that affects different expectations now. And I think you look back at it, if all things were normal, and let's say scandals never happened, Louisville basketball keeps trucking along per usual, and there's no NIL, it's nothing has changed in the landscape of the sport over the last decade outside of normal things you would expect. Having a year where you were preseason top 10, top 11, and had one of the highest paid, most exciting rosters in the sport, and seeing it finish with a 1-win, 1-loss opening weekend as a 6 seed, it wouldn't have been good. You'd have a lot of people that are just saying this is ridiculous, this isn't up to the standards, all of that stuff, and you still have that. But you've also got people kind of coming back and saying, well, look at where we were. Look at all that stuff. I mean, people are making the comparison to Rick Pitino. Rick only won 1 tournament game in his first 2 years here, which I don't think you can make an apples-to-apples comparison there for the reasons we kind of just touched upon. But, I don't think anybody knows how upset to be or how happy to be. And here's the way that I think. This is my grand prediction for when we look back at 2025, 2026 Louisville men's basketball. Because it's never going to be remembered as anybody's favorite team. I don't think it's ever going to be remembered as anybody's least favorite team. They did just enough not to be forever despised, and they didn't do enough to be forever beloved. I think it's going to be viewed as kind of a sign of things to come that only becomes clear when we know exactly how the Pat Kelsey era is going to look after 3 or 4 years. It's a placeholder for now. If Kelsey winds up being a guy that we view 5 years from now as somebody who can't get it done at the level that we expect, we'll look back at this season as a sign of things to come. Like, they were just good enough. They beat the teams they were supposed to. They lost the teams they were supposed to. He didn't get as much out of that squad as he was expecting to. I don't care about the Michael Brown stuff. I don't care about this or that. The writing was on the wall back in year 2 that he was good, not great. If we go on to build on this and we're better next year, and maybe next year or 2 years from now or 3 years from now we're right there competing for national championships, we look like one of the best teams in the country from start to finish, people will point to this and say it was a step in the whole progression of things. It wasn't perfect, but Pat Kelsey was still learning how to do this job. Everybody was still adjusting to the NIL transfer portal world. This was, he was still working out some of the kinks, and Michael Brown, a guy that's now in the NBA, not being able to play half the season for us, like, of course, look how good this guy is now in the NBA. Of course we weren't going to be as good as we thought we were going to be without that guy. I think that'll be an easy way to frame it if things go well. Like this season on its own, I don't know if anybody's ever going to, in the moment, have an accurate way to define it. Does that make sense?
No, it makes definite sense. For me, the one thing that made me feel the worst, I think, and like I said, I came out of the Michigan State game not feeling too bad, but the one thing that's kind of racked my brain constantly is that even after the Chris Mack era, even during the Kenny Payne era, and now we're here, we still feel like we're in a rebuild.
Yeah.
And it feels like, the stuff with how Chris Mack ended and then, the tragedy that was Kenny Payne coaching this program, it seems like that rebuild just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and now it's finally happening. So we're having to have the growing pains 10 years from our 9 years from our last NCAA tournament win. So it feels like the clock is so sped up because, like you said, we had the preseason top 10 or top 11, and then you beat Kentucky, and then you're number 6 in the polls at one point, and you have a 5-star freshman coming in and all this stuff. So it feels like everything's getting sped up, and then, you have a season that's where you drastically underachieve. So it just feels like you're just stuck in this loop of rebuild, and it's just over and over again. It's just, when's it going to end?
I think the biggest fear right now for fans, because there's no general sense that we're going to go back to being a losing program. That's not a fear. And honestly, it's probably less of a fear now than it ever has been in the past, just because if we're always going to have top 10 money dedicated to men's basketball, and we should always have top 10 money dedicated to men's basketball, your down season should look like this. Maybe a couple more guys get hurt and you can be, a 7 seed that loses in the second round by 1 billion points to a team without its best player. But you should never fall off the face of the earth. The question becomes, can you avoid being like Indiana, where they're just going through coaches trying to find that elite guy, and they just keep getting a bunch of good, not great guys?
Well, they did, but they just let him go.
Who? Which one?
Kelvin Sampson.
Oh, well, okay. Well, the rebuild kind of started after that, I guess. Well, I guess no. That's probably right. You can't text guys after midnight. Come on, man.
Can't. It's not allowed.
He's texting kids. Todd Golden texts kids after midnight all the time.
Well, we already know that. But they just choose not to talk about that one.
He's allowed to be out there coaching right now. They didn't do anything to him. Let me ask you. I want to know which side of the aisle you fall on, because I've seen, and I know social media isn't always indicative of the conversations that are going out there in real life. But there was an interesting one that's happened over the past 24 hours where people keep pointing to Rick Pitino, who is back in the news, talked about here locally for obvious reasons. They pull off a win yesterday over Kansas. They're going back to the Sweet 16. He's the third coach ever to take teams to the Sweet 16 over 5 different decades. And a lot of people are pointing to, he's the most recent great coach that we've had, so it makes sense that people want to compare our current coach with a guy who eventually won a national title here and went to 3 Final Fours. And people are saying, look, year 1 went to the NIT. Year 2, we were a 4 seed, won a game in the first round, got upset in the second round. And, he's on essentially the same path that Pat Kelsey is. If you want to say Kelsey's actually been better in these first 2 years, you can easily say that. And then there's a flip side of that argument that says you can't really compare. It's like comparing eras when you say, like, well, Babe Ruth would hit 50 home runs now, and people are like, Babe Ruth had never seen a split-finger fastball. He would pee his pants if he had to face Paul Skeens now. You couldn't pay players back then legally. When Rick got here, he inherited a 12-win team from Denny Crum and basically had all the same players the next year and turned that into a team that flirted with the NCAA tournament. That's a lot different than being able to flip your roster every year from one to the next because you've got $10 million to go out there and spend on players. So you can't really compare the beginning of the Pat Kelsey era with the beginning of the Rick Pitino era, or, for that matter, the beginning of the Denny Crum era, or even the beginning of the Chris Mack era. Which side of that argument do you fall on? Because I think there are valid points on both sides.
I'm honestly, I'm on neither side of this argument. I'm not trying to play that weird devil's advocate guy.
Doing the middle thing.
I am kind of doing the middle thing because I do not ever want to compare let's say Pat Kelsey doesn't work out 2 years from now, we have somebody else. And then we get into this, like you said, we get in this loop of coaches and coaches. I don't want to compare any of those guys to Rick Pitino, who is regarded as arguably the best college basketball coach in the history of the sport, to what we're trying to go through now. It's a different era. It's a different system. I know he's having success now, but then at the same time, now you're doing the same thing that Kentucky fans are doing. Whereas everything Mark Pope does, you're comparing to, well, Cal's in the Sweet 16 now. Cal just won an SEC championship. Cal's doing this. And now you're getting to the point where the fan base that ran your coach out now wants him back and wants to run this one out and has a thought that maybe he'll come back. Maybe now that Mitch Barnhart's fired, he might have a chance.
But I don't think Louisville fans are doing that as much as like the whole – they don't bring up Pitino as much for the what if he was still the coach here. It's more of look at the success that he wound up having here. Could Pat Kelsey we shouldn't have fired Rick or been unhappy with Rick because he won one tournament game over his first 2 years. Look at what happened when we had a little bit of patience there. And I don't know if that argument exactly holds weight, but I think that's what people are doing more so than like I wish Rick was still the coach. Although I think there are a lot of people who are like I wish Rick was still the coach.
And I get that, like I get that presence of the terms of, there's I said it during Running with Roman to this that I think that we are in that rebuild situation. I think Pat Kelsey getting that first win has alleviated some of the pressure.
Sure.
To me, I feel like it's been an extremely humbling experience in terms of no matter what happens, you're going to have to wait it out, just like you did with Rick, no matter what. I feel like Louisville's not in a situation to get rid of a guy like Pat Kelsey, just money-wise. I think that you're getting to that loop of coaching again, just like you said. And I would say I probably lean more towards the positive side of it, where, Pat Kelsey's doing almost better than Rick Pitino did in his first couple seasons. And, there's something to say about that. There's something to say about the way Pat Kelsey can maneuver this era of college basketball. But at the end of the day, it's one where I feel like if you start comparing guys like Pat Kelsey to Rick Pitino, you're already elevating the pedestal extremely, extremely high, and you're constantly going, okay, well, in Rick Pitino's fourth season, he did this. Pat Kelsey underachieved here. But then in his fifth season, he did better. It's just this constant thing of I feel like we need to stay in the era we're in and just let bygones be bygones.
I think the other thing that these, like, if you're trying to make it a apples-to-apples comparison, I think the thing that also gets lost is how much of the current evaluation of Pat Kelsey is based on the uncertainty about what he can or can't do. With Pitino, there was none of that because he won a national championship. He'd taken Providence to the Final Four. He dominated the sport at Kentucky. So it wasn't like, hey, can this guy be an elite coach? We already knew that. It's a totally different situation when you bring in a guy who's had a ton of success everywhere he's been, but everywhere that he's been has been Winthrop and Charleston. So I think that people are looking for signs that Pat Kelsey can be not just a coach that can get you consistently to the second round of the tournament or occasionally a Sweet 16. Can Pat Kelsey win national titles here? That's the big question, not just for him, but for anybody who gets hired at this job. And we don't have enough evidence one way or the other to confirm or deny that he's good enough. And I think everybody's just looking for ammo in both directions. Obviously, the glass half full Louisville fans are trying to find ways to say Kelsey can be the guy. The fact of the matter is the only thing that's going to give us the answers to these questions is more time, and nobody wants to hear that right now. We all would have loved to have had the answers to the question this year if Louisville had been able to go on a deep run, but unfortunately that was not the case. We haven't talked specifically about the game just yet, so let's do that for the last few minutes here of this first segment. The Cards do fall 77-69. It looked, I think a little bit like a lot of people thought this game was going to, at least in the second half. I was, and you said the same thing, Matt, I was very pleasantly surprised by how well this team defended inside the arc, how well they battled on the boards. We didn't get just dominated on the glass the way that Michigan State beats most teams. We didn't get dominated at the rim. We played hard. We played physical. In the first half, we just did not make open shots, and that it felt like a missed opportunity for us to play from ahead in the second half. If we don't go 4 of 18 from 3 in the first half, we've got a decent lead probably going into the second half. You don't have to change anything up. You've got some added confidence, and instead you put yourself in a position where all it took was one really good Michigan State run for them to kind of have control, seize control, and be able to just play the way that they wanted to down the stretch. Give me your you kind of talked about it a little bit, but give me your biggest positive from this game and your biggest negative from this game.
My biggest positive is that once again we saw this team fight when the shots weren't falling, and it was one where it did have some. I'm doing the thing where we just talked about I wasn't going to do, but it was reminiscent of something I would see an old school vintage Louisville Rick Pitino team would do, where when things in your plan A weren't going well, you buckled in. You found a gritty way to fight and stick in the game, and that was on the defensive end. That was crashing the glass. That was getting in the paint into a position to get rebounds before Michigan State was. And it was at the point where you're just having to survive this onslaught of contested three-pointers against Michigan Michigan State, where they got some open looks, but some of these shots they were hitting were I thought the defense was pretty well.
Yeah.
I thought that, there were plenty of shots they put up, and I thought, no, I like where I'm seeing here, and they would go in. Stuff like that happens. I thought they did a great job of not getting down in that situation and fighting and keeping it close enough. But at the end of the day, and in the second half, I started to feel like you could just kind of feel like the court was turning and like the tempo was changing towards Michigan State, especially after, I think the turning moment, Will said it in Running with Roman. It was a great point that when Ollie had a chance to tie the game and then miss, and then they come down, immediately hit a three basically in transition, I kind of got the feeling the game was over at that point.
That was the moment. You'd seize momentum. You had the ball. I still think, and I said this, and there's no way to know for sure, but Ollie had just hit a three, and Ryan's got the ball in transition. Ollie's standing right next to him with nobody close to him. I think you could tell, every now and then, Ryan would get this look, and he was great for us all year, but he would get this look where it was like, I want this.
Yeah.
I'm not looking around.
He does that he dribbles up and does that side to the step to the right. He's pulling up.
Yeah, and he had that look, and they had two guys right there on him. All he has to do is underhand flip to Ollie, wide open three. I'm feeling like he's going to make it. He doesn't do it. Ollie's open again 5 seconds later. He doesn't throw it to him again. They're not letting Conwell take the shot. We end up getting it was an okay look for Ollie, but pass wasn't great. He was decently guarded. It was a little bit later in the shot clock. He misses. And then Ryan on the other end, his guy, the one guy that you've got to not let catch and shoot, Kurtang, just steps right into a three and buries it right in his face. And then we come down and Ryan forces a three and misses it. All of a sudden, they're up 6. They've got the ball, and they never really relinquished control from that point. And look, Ryan played well in the game. I don't mean to bash on that. That was just a really bad stretch at a really bad time for him where it felt like we had a shot. That was the opening. But you look at the box score after the game, and they shot 42% from three. That's not typically their MO. They outscored us by 10 at the free throw line. That kind of negated the advantage that we had in the turnover battle where we did force them into a solid amount of turnovers. We took care of the ball better in this game than we did against USF, which we should have. Michigan State doesn't typically force a lot of turnovers. And I know we made some late threes in the game to kind of make our percentage look better. You got to make more shots from the outside. Your team's superpower was supposed to be your three-point shooting team, your three-point shooting. That was going to be your trump card. That was how you overcame games where teams shot abnormally high from the outside or teams had a sizable advantage on you in the paint, and we just never did it in big games. They didn't do it in this game, and second game all year that we've been held below 70 points. That's what Michigan State wanted to do. We ultimately ended up playing their game, and that's what it came down to, and I guess there's no shame in it. It did feel like it was there for the taking. This wasn't one where it was like Michigan State came out and they just played flawless basketball. They were loose. They were sloppy. And if we could have taken more advantage of that in the first half, I really think we would have had a chance. But it went the way it was supposed to.
I felt like it gave a little bit more ammo to the, gosh, why is Michael not wanting to play in this game? Because I felt like half of the turnovers we got against them were the moments in this game where we sped them up.
Yeah. I mean, this was the first. I told myself I wasn't going to do this. I found myself consistently thinking through this game, if you had Michael Brown. This is the perfect game for him to handle their pressure. Jeremy Fears, as much of a foul bait flopper as he is, can't do anything against a guy like Michael. He would have been able to help out a lot in that. It just, you can't think that way because you had him for so little and you kind of knew going into the end of the season that he wasn't going to play. But it was hard not to watch that and think, man, it'd be great to have a top 10 draft pick point guard right now. Would have helped a lot. Didn't happen. We'll take a break. We'll come back. More hoop thoughts out there. Where do we go from here? We'll talk about it after the break. Rutherford Show, 1450, 96.1 The Big X.
Without you, my friend, and I'll tell
o'clock hour, Rutherford Show, 1450, 96.1, Big X Sports Radio. It is always, I don't know if you go through this, whenever Louisville loses in the men's NCAA tournament, the reality of how long it is before you get a chance to play in it again just immediately sets in. Because, like the Friday, when you know Louisville's going to play in about 24 hours, it feels like you've got an eternity. It's like we're in the middle of this thing. This is great. And then it's like it's like a light switch. The second that buzzer sounds, it's over. And you know that it's such a long road, especially now where we don't even know who's going to be on the team. We got to figure all that stuff out. Can we form a competitive roster over the next month and a half? Can those guys gel? Do we have the right character players? And then you go through the preseason, and then November with the bye games and the early season tournaments and all that stuff. It is a interminable amount of time before you get another shot at making those March memories that have now eluded us for over a decade. Have not been to a Sweet 16 since 2015, and will not have another chance to change that until 2027. It immediately sets in, and you're like, my God, that's a lifetime. I'm gonna be 42. It's terrible.
No, I mean it's one of those where you look back and I think the transfer portal NIL era just makes it even worse because you never know who's going to be on your team next season, no matter what. Even if, let's say, like the perfect example is Adrian Woolley. I think I can't speak for the whole fan base, but I think that a good amount of the fan base would say that they want Adrian Woolley to come back if it's for the right price. You don't want to give him a whole bag to come back and be our starting point guard. But if he wants to come back, continue to develop under Pat Kelsey, I want to have him back. That's stuff that you can hope for. But let's go back to 2012, 2013 when you went to back-to-back Final Fours and won national championship. After you lost to Kentucky in 2012, you knew most of that roster was obviously returning.
Yeah.
So you had the almost excitement after the game was over. It's like, you're down because you lost to your rival and you lost the Final Four, but you're going to be just as good next season, if not better, with the people you're also bringing in, and you don't have that anymore.
No, I mean, that was the first thought. I mean, I remember being in New Orleans, and there was this general sense of, in hindsight, it's kind of funny to think about. The biggest sense of excitement going into that 2013 season compared to 2012 was, my God, like, we're going to have healthy Wayne Blackshear. Like that was the big thing was, this team was great, but we're going to have an NBA talent type team next year. Sophomore Shane, Wayne was going to be finally healthy, and he could step into the role that Kyle Couric had. You're going to get senior Peyton Siva. Like all of that stuff was very true. But you're exactly right. There was never any doubt about whether or not that team was going to be good the next year because you knew there wasn't a guy on that team that you even had to worry about making a jump to the NBA. Peyton wasn't going to go to the NBA. Russ wasn't going to go to the NBA. Gorgie had taken a giant step forward as a sophomore, but he still was not viewed as at that point NBA ready type center. So you knew all those guys were coming back, and then like you said, you're bringing in a couple of freshmen that were going to help out. It was great. And now the great unknown is out there. You assume we're going to be able to go out there and get talented players because of the money that we've got. But there are a lot of other programs out there that have money that are also going to be going after some of those same players. And will the talent pool be quite as deep as it has been the last couple of years now that we've weeded out some of those COVID-era 24 and 25-year-olds with all the eligibility? Who knows? Even if you get back all of the guys on this year's team that have eligibility remaining, I don't know how much that moves the needle for a lot of the fan base. I think there are a couple of those guys that people maybe don't want back. And even if they do come back, it's like, is that really the foundation that we're building around for next season? It's totally different than it used to be. And you're right. It's a long journey. It's great for us as radio people because there's always something to talk about for the next 7 weeks. As the portal opens and names are out there and we talk about visits and who's interested and who's not and all that stuff. So definitely out there. Here's one thing that I think we can all say, and I think even they would agree. We're in a better space mentally right now than Kentucky fans are because, I mean, they kind of taunted the fan base yesterday by playing well in the first half, only down one at the break, and then they just get blown out in the second. And immediately it goes right back from, hey, that Santa Clara game, that's an all-time shot. Let's catch some magic. To I can't believe that Mark Pope is our head coach. You've also got John Calipari in the Sweet 16. And I don't know if you've seen over the last couple of hours, we got Boogie Cousins calling out Matt Jones.
I saw that. I just loved that was how they closed the whole show out. He's like, hey, guys, before we head out.
What show was that?
It was like a FanDuel show.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like a national.
No, I'd never watched it. That was the first time I'd ever seen it.
So yeah, they're ending the show. It's a panel. They're talking about UK, and like yeah, the music's playing, and DeMarcus Cousins feels so strongly about this that he has to like make sure that he fits it in. He's like, we got to stop listening to Matt Jones about Kentucky basketball, and that's like Matt's guy. He was like one of the first players that really embraced KSR, and I've always heard that they had a great relationship over the years. And he's calling out Matt Jones, and then Matt responded on Twitter and said something along the lines of, that's fine, and former players, of course, are going to know more than I am. But that entire fan base now is, and I don't think it would be this way if Calipari wasn't having success at Arkansas. They're at each other's throats over what they should have done, where they should go from here, how acceptable is this, and I don't think they've got a coach who is at all equipped to handle this. The more evidence that comes out, the more I'm like, this is, personality-wise, this is the last guy that I would want running the show if I was a UK fan. And I know that it hurt all of our souls when they won that game against Santa Clara. But there was a part of me that was like, if this keeps them around for another couple of years, I'm fine with Kentucky going to Sweet 16s and round of 32s. I don't want them to get back winning national titles or going to Final Fours or anything like that. Did you know this is the longest stretch of time that Kentucky has ever gone without a second weekend appearance in the NCAA tournament?
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Because Stephen Peak is reminding me about it almost every day on Kentucky Roll Call.
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing.
As the resident, producer that, works on those shows, I want to go ahead on your show today and tell the Louisville fans out there, if you think you have it, if you think you're angry, you have no idea what it sounds like. I am not allowed to speak on that show without a texter coming at my neck. And I won't even say anything bad. Like TJ would make a point and be like, I just don't think Mark Pope can win a national championship here. And I'll they'll be like, what do you think, man? I'll be like, honestly, I think that he has trouble with rotations and this and that. And it's, the Louisville fan who had to deal with Kentucky, with Kenny Payne wants to say something. I'm like, all right, guys, all right, let's calm down. Let's relax.
Oh, man.
It's volatile over there right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I have to constantly remind him, I'm like, because, like I said, Peak will bring up, he's like, this is the worst stretch of Kentucky basketball history I've ever been in. And I was like, it's not that bad, guys. You guys need to calm down.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. It could be worse.
Before this, the only time where they'd gone to, they've missed 6 consecutive Elite Eights. And the only time before this they'd gone 5 years without an Elite Eight was the scandal period, end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, when they were literally talking about getting the death penalty for the program. So they're having a rough go of it. We obviously want to get back to where we expect to be. They are beyond angry about not being where they expect to be. And now you've got former players calling out media people, and the whole fan base kind of arguing about how much blame does Matt Jones deserve for John Calipari not being here anymore.
Did you see the Tyrese Halliburton tweet that
yes!
put on ESPN?
Yes, I mean, that's the other thing. Is I saw it as I was in the McDonald's drive-through line yesterday, coming back from my son's t-ball practice. Tyrese Halliburton says, and I'm paraphrasing here.
I have it if you just want me to read it.
Okay, you go for it.
It says, went to text the guys who played at Kentucky about this game and forgot they think they Arkansas alum now.
I mean, he's not wrong. Like, was it Tyler Harrow was asked about who he was rooting for in the tournament, and he said I'm rooting for Arkansas. Like, that's my squad. And now Cousins was one of the guys who stepped up and said, I'm Kentucky. It's me. I would guess the majority of the former alum, and this isn't me trying to do a rivalry thing, I think the majority of the one-and-done players, the NBA guys, don't get me wrong, they love UK. I think they identify more as Cal guys than UK guys.
Well, I mean, even Mark Pope identifies them as Cal guys. What he said, 27 players went to the NBA draft, and people were like, that's not even your players, my guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's when you form a program that's built around, I'm going to get you to the NBA. I mean, say what you will about him. Say, whether he was being honest or not. That was Calipari put it out there in the public. Like, I care more about getting these kids to the NBA than I care about winning championships or doing winning games for the University of Kentucky. Like, it's players first. It's not program first. Pitino was the total opposite. When that's the case, like, kind of got to expect the kids to identify more as Calipari guys than UK guys. But they're dealing with some stuff right now. We'll see if they can find their way out of it. Lord knows they've got enough money to do it if they can find the right level of talent. But hopefully Mark Pope isn't taking more guys to Keeneland this spring if they want to keep them around. Let's see.
Horse poop doesn't bring recruits in.
You want to ride that thing? I can talk to. I know Brad Cox. I can get you on that horse. It's It's amazing they lost out on Alvaro Fulgaris, who hit the game-winning shot for Iowa last night, or Lamar Wilkerson, or any of those other guys.
I was on Dalton Pence asked me to help him with his Locked On podcast last night. So, like, I was doing that with him as that game was going on. Dalton was avidly asking me a question. And I'm watching the last possession of Florida, and he's like, what do you think about that, Matt? And it's just like 4 seconds of silence. I'm like, oh, my God.
It was an incredible game. I mean, the cheap shots, Ben McCollum's a dude, by the way. Ben McCollum, I was like, because I was very high when they hired him away. This is a guy that won everything at D2, won at Drake his first year at an insanely high level. He's known as one of the best basketball minds in the sport. And I was like, he's going to crush it there. And then they kind of had a not great resume. Like, they never had a stretch where they proved that they could be a team that could beat a squad like Florida. And they were at their worst towards the end of the season. They lost 6 of their last 8. And I was kind of like, man, maybe I mis-evaled on this guy. But I think he's getting it done at a pretty high level. They're awfully fun to watch, and that game against Nebraska on Thursday will be a lot of fun. Like, those are the two people are like, why are we saying that Nebraska and Iowa are like the two Cinderellas out there? I'm like, because they're white guys. Like that's what people are thinking when they look at those two teams. With Nebraska, you can also say, well, they'd never won a game in the tournament before. They're a 4 seed, for God's sake. Iowa's, they've been 2 and 3 seeds over the last 10 years. It's not like they're a little program that could. We don't look at Texas the same way. Like, people are just like, they're boring white kid programs. They shouldn't even be here. They're the Cinderella stories. There's just something more likable about those teams.
They're going to take the ceremonial punt to kick off the game.
And just fair catching left and right of a free throw off to decide who gets to go play in the Elite Eight. I think it will be an entertaining Sweet 16 if you're one of those fans that just, you bow out whenever Louisville's gone or you bow out whenever Kentucky's gone. Hey, that's fine. I understand, but I am excited about the basketball that we have ahead of ourselves. For Louisville moving forward, let me ask you this, because I feel like this has been a thing kind of going around too, and as it is after every single season in every sport. How do we grade this season, or how do we evaluate this season? Because obviously you had some injuries. Obviously things didn't go quite according to plan, but it wasn't a total disaster. It did, like you say, feel like down the stretch we got the guys playing as hard as they could. I mean, you look at that locker room, the videos that came out of that locker room, those dudes were devastated. We had I think a general belief as a fan base about halfway through the season that these guys just they don't care as much as last year's team did. They don't care as much as we do. And then you see, I mean, dudes are just breaking down after that game on Saturday. He clearly had a connected unit. He clearly did a good job at creating that culture. I think there were some really good things that happened this season. But if we're looking at it from a grade perspective, where do you go here?
I don't know, because I said this on Kentucky Roll Call earlier, that the whole, now that the players are, before when you were generally recruited and you were here for a multiple stints of time here, if I saw people cry in the locker room, it would make me upset. Now it's just I almost view them as just professional athletes now. So, yeah, it's fun to see. It's cool to see that they did end up caring, and I felt bad for Javon Hadley.
Javon got to me.
Yeah, he was talking about, basically blamed himself for everything, his last 2 games and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's one where I just wish we would have seen it more during the season. I get that they were doing their whole thing of staying away from the media because it was getting disappointing and stuff, but I kind of wish I would have seen that emotion earlier on. It would have bought me in a little bit more.
I get that. What grade do you give the season, though?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to add. I feel like this team was just unequivocally average. I'm giving it a C+.
See, I feel like everybody – I feel like it's the same conversation we had at the end of the football year, where anybody who's saying it's a D or worse, I can't get on board with that, but I equally roll my eyes if anybody's trying to say, hey, it's an A- given, A, B, and C. I feel like it's got to be B- or C+, because we didn't live up to preseason expectations. There's no other way to flip that. This team was picked to finish 2nd in the ACC. This team was 11th in the preseason AP poll. They're going to finish maybe at the back end of the top 25 when the final AP poll comes out. They finished 6th in the ACC. That was an underachievement based on preseason standards. But if you want to toss in, well, Kason Pryor was never really healthy, and we barely got to see any of Michael Brown and all this and that, and some guys weren't what we thought they were going to be. Okay. I think the grade, though, it goes hand in hand with roster construction as well. If you want to say, this team did a good job coaching around, or the staff did a good job coaching around Sneijder Fru's deficiencies, well, that's on them. They went to Europe. They identified this as a guy that they thought could be an all-conference type player, and he wasn't close to an all-conference type player. I think there were some other misses on the roster as well. People had criticisms of using a roster spot for a red shirt and not, having 2 open scholarships that just weren't used this season. I think you could look at all of that. I lean a little bit more towards B- than C+, just because they won that game in the tournament. And I do think it's hard to roll your eyes at, too much at least, at a team that never really had a bad loss, never had a terrible loss. They didn't have the great wins, but it was just kind of a, they did what they were supposed to do more times than not. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I can't give that a B. I feel like straight C or C- is a little too hard. I can get on board with the C+. I mean, I'm torn between those two. If there was some grade between those two, I would go with that.
For me, it's one where Louisville has, in my lifetime. Okay, let's go back before Chris Mack and I was in college. When I was growing up, all I knew was Louisville basketball was one of the best programs in the country. That's all I knew. So, going through all of this recently, it sucked. I want us to get back there just as much as everybody else does, but I think that as a fan base, we also need to understand that our average is not the country's average. Yeah. Our average is Sweet 16 and beyond. That's just, you get to the second weekend if you're Louisville. But most of the country doesn't do that. They don't. You don't see the Iowas go to the Sweet. You don't see the Nebraskas. You don't see all these teams go to the Sweet 16 regularly like Louisville did. And I think we're just at the point now where this was, like I said, an average season. This is what almost everyone else in the country can, atone that, we could do that in a really good season. We could have a good year and do what Louisville did this year. That's upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to even look at it from the area you're talking about, it does remind you a little bit of the 2007 season where we did the exact same thing that this team did. They I don't think, I can't remember. I don't think that team had quite as high preseason expectations as this one did because they were coming off of the NIT trip in 2006. They started slow, lost a couple of games in non-conference, up and down a little bit in Big East play, and then they got a 6 seed. Now, they destroyed Stanford in the first game of the NCAA tournament and lost that heartbreaker to Texas A&M. It was the same kind of season. You look back, it's an almost forgotten season in the Rick Pitino era. People remember the NIT seasons because they were bad. People remember the run to the second weekend and obviously the run to the Final Four. And this is one of those where people are like, oh, yeah, I kind of forgot. AC Law killed us, right? Got Billy Gillespie the job at UK. You kind of have to remind people about that season. I think at the end of the day, this will be one of those years. Whether it works out with Kelsey or it doesn't work out with Kelsey, it was just good enough to not be remembered forever, and it was just not bad enough to be remembered forever. And everyone's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, that was a 6 seed. They won that game tournament, right? Almost lost it." And actually, I'm looking at it on KenPom. That 06 team finished 19th on KenPom, or that 07 team. We are currently 19th on KenPom. So the exact same type of year, right there. It was a very
just fueling the fire of the PK versus Rick Pitino collaborators.
Same thing there. I mean, it was. Well, okay, let's look at what we were on KenPom and Pitino's second year, which was 03, 10th. Okay, well, it's better. A year later, though, that 04 team that 19th yet again lost in the first round of the tournament to Xavier. Pat Kelsey's going to win us a national title in year 10.
I think the hardest part about this is, I feel like everyone here wants the Pat Kelsey system to work because you know how exciting and fun it can be to watch. And we've seen it be fun to watch this year. We've seen us win games where Ryan Conwell and Azami Neely are just going crazy, and you feels like no matter what the other team does, they're not going to be able to slow this team down.
Bama beat Texas Tech by 1 billion points last night because they made 1 billion threes. They're in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, but I feel like the part of it is you're watching this team have success, but not to as much as you expected it to be, and then you see teams like Arizona, who are almost the complete opposite of our brand of basketball, just gritty, physical. They don't even need to shoot because they just pound you inside and beat you on the defensive end, have overwhelming success, and it makes you feel like, are we doing the right things over here? Is Pat Kelsey watching the right basketball?
That's a perfect segue to Todd Golden, and his words don't carry quite as much weight today as they would have 24 hours ago because they just got bounced in the second round of the tournament. But he was being asked after that, they beat Prairie View A&M by 1 billion points. I think 59, actually. Second biggest lopsided win in NCAA tournament history. Fun fact there, 2 teams have played Prairie View in the first round in a 1-16 game, and both of them have won that game by 50, and then both of them have lost the very next game. I think it was Kansas in 1999 and in Florida this year. If you play Prairie View A&M in the first round and destroy them, don't get too high on yourself. You're going down a round later.
Their head coach still has my favorite halftime interview of the tournament so far.
Where he was like,
we need God.
We need Lord's help. How do you slow down Florida? It's like, just, we need the Lord's help. It was very, very good. It was a great quote. But Golden was asked about the changing in philosophy at the college level, just from where it had been a couple of years ago. Elite teams have gone from looking at skill and being able to play 5 out, the NBA style that was so in vogue a few years ago. Alabama still plays it. We obviously still play on it. To kind of going more about dominating at the rim, going all in, and how that maybe is the best style when it comes to March Madness success. And here was his quote. He said, as far as the pro style, that was kind of the way for a couple of years. Teams that sold themselves as playing a pro style offense and spread out. But when you play that way, you allow a lot of volatility to enter the equation. When you have the opportunity to recruit bigger, stronger, faster athletes and play a style that allows you to raise your floor with high 2-point field goal percentage and get on the glass, that just gives you a better chance to be consistently successful. A lot of people saw that quote and brought up Roy Williams, who essentially said the same thing year after year after year, which was he would go out and recruit big, strong, fast athletes who, remember those North Carolina teams? Like half of them, those guys just could not shoot at all. But they would get out in transition. They would run to the rim. They would defend the rim on the other end. And his whole rationale was, you can game plan against the best teams in college basketball to make up for your deficiencies. But having those types of players, it almost makes you upset proof. And Williams went his entire career, I think until his second to last year, without losing a single game in the first round of the tournament. And he was like, I'm controlling my variance. If you've got this level of athlete, if you've got this size, if you can play the way that you want to play, any team that's like a mid-major or a lower-level power conference program, they're not going to beat you. Like you take away the possibility of losing a game to a team that you have no business losing to, and then when you play teams that do have a better combination of size and skill, you figure it out on the fly. I think a lot of people now are kind of wondering, does Pat Kelsey, does he scrap the whole game plan that he had, the whole system that made him successful in the later years at Winthrop and Charleston and the first couple of years here at Louisville, and go with something else? Because you can recruit kind of whoever you want to at this place. You may not be able to get whoever you want to, but you can get the type of player. You can beat out 95% of schools for players. Would you like to see Pat Kelsey have a complete philosophical shift, or do you want to ride this thing out and see if he can get it with a better group of players next season?
I want to ride this thing out. I feel like Pat Kelsey, he's had success under this system before. I think that there's definitely some adjustments to be made. I think that you miss on a guy like Frew. You expected more out of him. I feel like we got surprised with the way Zugris ended up ending the season.
Yeah.
You kind of feel like you want to retain a guy like that who can just bring energy on the floor. I feel like almost everything that comes down to the issues with this team are constructed roster-wise. Giving Kason Pryor another season ended up being a complete failure. You have Kamara, who's a red shirt, this season, so you don't even get to see if he's worthy of playing or not. Kanai had a really good jump at the beginning of the season, really slowed down. I want to see Pat Kelsey's system work, but almost in like a more balanced sense where the scouting is done better in the preseason, if that makes any sense.
Maybe it's like you keep the same basic tenets, but we tone it down just a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
Like we still play the same brand of offense, like it's a backcourt heavy offense, but we have a guy like Mustafa Cham who just, when you miss shots, we have somebody get the offensive board almost every time, right? Where you can run that brand of offense. I just feel like the brand of offense we had did not mesh well with the issues we had rebounding and playing defense. You didn't get more. The point was to get more possessions, and we almost got less.
See, I think the staff looked at the roster this year and said, we know we're giving something up defensively. I think they thought that Sananda would be a little bit better of a rim protector than he was, but they knew he wasn't going to be, the Ugachefu kid from Virginia. I think they thought that the shooting was going to be so good and so overwhelming that it wasn't going to matter. That against those types of teams that could just get around us at will and score at the rim at will, we were going to be able to overwhelm them by hitting 18, 19, 23s a game. And when that wound up not being the case, we had no pivot because we played a lot better defensively down the stretch. There was a ceiling for that team defensively that was not nearly as high as a lot of the teams in the country because the roster was assembled that way. I mean, I can't imagine going through what we just went through and taking that exact same risk and going out there and getting a bunch of guys who can shoot it but maybe can't defend that well. But maybe they do. I don't know. I'm sure it's tough to, like, for your pride to have a system that you believe you can win a national title with and just scrap it 2 years into the process. But you've got to see the writing on the wall a little bit, enough to say we got to have at least a few better athletes. We got to at least have more size at the forward position. We've got to be there's got to be something of a safety net for games where you go out there and you shoot 23% from three against a really good opponent. Because we had nothing. If we didn't shoot the hell out of it, we were done against anybody good this year. That can't be the case moving forward. You guys have loaded up the text line. You guys have loaded up the YouTube chat. We'll get to your thoughts after the break. End of season, where we go from here, all of that good stuff. It's your thoughts after the break. Rutherford Show, hour number 2 is on the way here on 1450 and 96.1 Big X Sports Radio. Tower number 2, It's the Rutherford Show, 1450 96.1 Big X Sports Radio. Do want to remind you guys, we are brought to you by our friends over at United Mechanical. They are your MVPs for commercial and industrial HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and refrigeration services. Get out there and call them 502-339-1133. This weather's wreaking havoc on everybody, so you may have some issues going on. We had the storms were causing the electric. Also, it was like 85 degrees yesterday, and then the storm happens, and it's like 42. Just I'll never get used to it, I guess. But we're almost at spring. It looks like spring outside. It just doesn't feel like it. I think it's going to get better over the next couple of days. But here we go. It's post-basketball now time in the Bluegrass, at least for the men. The women are marching on after a 1-point win over Alabama today. They will take on Michigan in the Sweet 16 in a 2-3 matchup. That will be the Texas is the number 1 seed, so I guess the Austin regional. But the men's our teams here locally are both out of the tournament before the second weekend. Again, feels very strange. It feels almost too common at this point. And now we're kind of looking ahead to the future. Before we get to the Gameday Health men's text line, 502-414-1450, or the YouTube chat, really quickly, there are 6 players on this year's team, and I'm including the 2 players who did not play. I guess 7 technically, because Kason Pryor has more eligibility, who could come back if the staff wanted them to or if they wanted to. I want to ask you if you want these guys back. If Matt Childress were the GM here, what would he do? We'll start with Kason Pryor. He is like 25 years old. He's got 7 years of eligibility.
He's done.
He can play college basketball for another year. You don't want him here.
No, I don't want him here.
I'm sad.
I mean, like, I love his, like, I've been a Kason Pryor defender. I love his energy on the bench. If he wanted to come back and play for free and just sit on the bench like he did this year, then you know what? Sure, why not?
Well, he posted like a run it back or something thing on Instagram yesterday. And
you got to be able to run to do that.
Louisville fans, I don't think were nearly as excited as when he posted the same stuff 12 months ago. So I'm with you there. The 2 guys who sat out, Mo Kamara. We have no idea if this guy can play basketball, but we brought him here. He was with the program for the past year. Do you want him back next season?
You have to bring him back in terms of you just spent a whole year with this guy on roster paying him to develop him. If I saw him go to another university, that would spell bad news for Pat Kelsey.
I think you do too, as long as it's a situation where we're not paying him like much, right?
Yeah, it'd have to be like really small amount.
I don't know. I honestly, this is one of the players. I've got no idea what his deal was to come over here this year, like what the financials were. If it's like the same as if they got him over here for very cheap, if it's the same type of deal, then and he wants to come back, okay, sure. I do think, roster retention is such a huge deal now, and you're looking at most of the best teams in college basketball had solid roster retention, relatively speaking, not related to the way that it was 10 years ago. But you look at all the graphics that go out there about, hey, here's the starting fives and the schools that they've played for, and it seems like most of the teams that have advanced had at least 3-4 guys that were key contributors last year that came back. You want to be able to retain that culture, especially when you are culture reliant like Pat Kelsey is. So just for that reason alone, I would bring Mo Kamara back. Now, London Johnson we know a little bit more about just because we've got film of him in the G League. We've got film of him playing professionally elsewhere. He could have played a little bit this season. They came to an agreement that he wouldn't. I think he's still got 2 years of eligibility left. Do you want London Johnson playing next year?
Can I give an I don't really care? Is that a good answer?
I think that's fine.
Like you said, it's one where I don't think he fixes any of our problems.
No.
And he's also not going to come in and be like, gosh, I can't wait to watch London Johnson start this season.
I don't think London Johnson – if he's coming back to start, then we're in a lot more trouble than I think, because kind of what I've heard is like he's not – when there were the rumors about him playing when Michael first got hurt, the word that I sort of got was like don't get worked up about it one way or the other because he wouldn't help. And if he's not going to help, then I don't really know what the point is. But if he's if he's a good fit, maybe he can play the Kobe Rogers role next year, maybe a little bit better than Kobe played it this year. Then I'm fine with it. I think this is sort of the big kind of I don't care. Kenai Roots.
I'm 100% in on Kenai Roots.
Okay. This is where I think it's more difficult to talk about stuff like this because we don't have access to the financials. Kenai's played 2 full years here at Louisville. He's got, I assume his highlight package looks good because he's got a bunch of dunks and some crazy rebounds and made some outside shots this year. I'm sure he could go out there and get a decent chunk of change from a program that's looking to bring a player with the combination of size and athleticism that he does. I would like him to come back just because I like the kid, and I do think that there's untapped potential there, like every other Louisville fan does. But if it's at the cost of, if he's going to demand the same price as a guy who averaged like 18-9 at the mid-major level last year, I don't think he's earned that just yet. So I would, it goes like a little asterisk. I want him back, but if he's going to be one of our 4 or 5 highest paid players next year, I don't think he's worth that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's one where I feel like the spurts of Kanai we saw this year that we loved were just fantastic.
They also were way too few and far between.
Yeah, I think the consistency wasn't there, and I think that's something he needs to develop. One of the things that also frustrated me about Kanai this year was he just didn't fit into this system at all this season, because we felt like his three-point shot was going to develop a lot more in the offseason, and he was going to be the guy that, if Ollie wasn't hitting, if Frew needed to be the paint guy, he could stretch the floor. He just didn't look confident in shooting the ball at all this season. Like, there were so many times he'd be open, and he would do like a jab step pump fake where I think he's going to pull it, and then he would end up just swinging the ball off or this and that. And he only really shot when he had to. And I get that, I don't know, he's developing and stuff like this. So, I agree with you. If it comes at a decent price, I definitely want Kanai back. But if he's asking for a lot of money, maybe you can. There's definitely going to be guys like him in the portal you can find that probably have better production.
Zoo.
I want Zoo back.
I do too.
I don't think he's going to cost very much to come back. I think that he likes the university. I think he likes the people he plays with. And it's another thing with Kanai. It's just a motor out there. And it's a guy who brings the energy, and you need those guys, whether they're coming off the bench or they're having starting minutes.
Now, I want Zoo back. I don't want Zoo starting next year at the 5. I think if we're going in, and I love what he gave us, and he was our best big man in that game against Michigan State on Saturday, without question. I love what he gave us down the stretch. If we are starting Vangelis Zugris at center for the entirety of next year, I've got big questions about where we're going. I don't think that that's the answer there. But if he wants to be a guy who plays about the same type of minutes next season, I'm good with that. I mean, I love the kid. Everybody does. Sananda Frew.
This is the one I'm really conflicted on, because if Frew wants to come back, it's almost like if it's for I know he's going to ask for money. He's not going to be super, super cheap. It's just not going to be.
He wasn't super cheap this year.
I know, but there's going to be other schools that it's going to be like a James Scott situation where other schools are going to give him more than what we want.
I agree.
If he's willing to take the pay cut and say, look, I like this system of basketball, I like this place, and I want to stay here, you're still going to have to pay him. I understand that. I would like to see Frew back, but if it comes that he is our, like you did the metric earlier, if he's our second highest player on this roster, then no.
Let me start by saying this. I don't think Sananda Frew is going to be back next year. I would also say no, because I do think he's going to. This is the problem when you kind of take a risk, and it's a guy who didn't play high-level college basketball last year, but you think where he played is going to translate, and so you give him. I think we gave Sananda the type of money that you would give sort of an all-conference high-level player in college that had proven himself. He did not play like that at all this year. And when you give a player that initial deal, they're going to want at least somewhere in the ballpark of that deal. And I don't think that the staff is – I don't think I'm telling you guys anything you don't already know. The staff was expecting more of Sananda Frew. They were disappointed with Sananda Frew. You saw it in that episode of the doc series where Kelsey's just like, I've been nice to you all year. It hadn't worked. Maybe I got to get on your ass a little bit. And he's yelling at him before the ACC tournament. They wanted more out of him. They never really got that. He played well against USF. I don't think he's coming back, and I hate to even talk about this because I like Sananda. He seems like a really good person, but if I just looking at it from a business perspective, I don't want him on next year's team. I'm fine with him not being on next year's team. And then lastly, the player that played the most this season with the opportunity to come back is Adrian Woolley.
I'm 100%. I want Adrian Woolley back, but I already said earlier, if I know
the cost again.
Yeah, there was the links to Arkansas coming into the ACC tournament. If Cal is going to dish out $2 million or $1.3 million to Adrian Woolley, then it's going to be all right, man. we love you. You ended up becoming one of our better defensive pieces, which is not great. You're a decent ball handler, not fantastic, but it was one where you saw the potential. You saw what he can become, and you want to. That's a guy who I think that can thrive under a system that Pat Kelsey runs. But it's going to be a lot of the guys I want back. They're all going to need to take basically pay cuts.
Yeah, I mean, now here's this is one of those it's just us talking moments, right? We can kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. I won't name names, but I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt. This is 100% absolutely true. He took less money to come play for us compared to another power conference school that really wanted him and that has a solid track record. And when I say took less money, we're talking six figures less money to come here. Like the system, was sold on PK, was sold on like he wanted to play at a program that is the biggest of the big, and we had a little bit more history, a little bit more facilities, a little bigger fan base than the other program that was offering him more money last season. Now that gives me a little bit of hope that you could work out something with him because big schools are going to come calling. The Arkansas thing, I think that got a little bit overblown because guess what? Everybody's agent's talking to every school that's out there. Just one guy with a fan site got wind of the fact that Woolley was being talked to and chose to run with it. And maybe he ends up at Arkansas. Maybe he ends up somewhere else. I don't know. I wouldn't put too much stock in that. But if we can get him back for about the same amount of money as we got him this year, and maybe that's doable because he just hopefully fell in love with the place and wants to play a bigger role in an even better team next season, I would take it. But if we're talking about getting up there around seven figures, if he's going to be one of those 2, 3, 4 players that you go all in on, investing the lion's share of your NIL money in on, as much as I like the kid, I don't know if he played well enough this season that you could feel confident beyond the shadow of a doubt that he could be an all-conference caliber player next year. You know, we never saw that consistently from him. He had moments where he was very good. He always played hard. He always did his best out there, but there was never a time where I was like, and he got a lot of run with Michael out. There was never a time where he looked like a player that if he just took more shots or had more usage could be like honorable mention All-ACC or third team All-ACC or anything like that. I think he can get there, but that's not guaranteed at this point. So like he's another one. All things being equal, do I want him back? Yes. If it's at the expense of being able to go out there and get a player that's going to cost about the same amount of money that maybe has proven a little bit more, then I think the answer has to be no. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's entirely fair. I think we're at a point where, like you said, we got a little bit of a decent run with him, and we had some great moments with him, and you saw that what we want Adrian Woolley to be, you saw that he can pick up the slack in certain areas, but, like you said, it's going to come at a cost where I think he will be, if we bring somebody back, one of the more expensive people to bring back, besides Frew. If we were to like go all in and bring Frew back, he's going to be expensive no matter what. I think I would lean towards not bringing him back because I'm getting the vibes that no matter what, he's going to request a decent sum of money.
Yeah.
And it's like I would love to have him back, but I think we would need like the stars to align to make that work.
I can see him. Now, I was listening to the post game on Saturday, and Paul Rogers just kind of casually dropped. He's like, I'm hearing that, some people are saying that Adrian Woolley is the only guy they want back, which is not what I'd heard. But if they want him back that bad, so much so that they're willing to take the money that they would give to Zoo and Kanai and whoever else, London Johnson, that they'll like pony up, then I think he'll be back. But I can't get there with what we saw from him this season.
No, I mean, you need such drastic changes. It's one where, like, yes, the roster retention in this era of college basketball is what's most important because you need that chemistry, like, especially with if you're the guy who, if you're Pat Kelsey and you're the culture guy, you actually need players to be retained in your system to call yourself the culture guy. If you're just flopping out roster after roster every year, you can't really say that. So it's a priority for Pat Kelsey, I would say. But at the same time, if it's at the cost of 50% of our NIL collective to bring 2 or 3 guys back, then I don't know if it's worth.
I wonder how much of a factor that is for him because last year he always knew, regardless of who they were able to bring back and who left, they had Ollie and Kobe coming back. Kobe had been at Charleston, knew the culture there, could carry that over. Ollie was a big-time culture guy. If you don't bring back any of these guys, or only one or two of them, you run the risk of being even further behind in that department when you get everybody on campus starting in June. I just don't know how much that factors into the equation either. I mean, it's a complicated time to be a guy who's building a roster, and then I think there's talk about the staff and maybe some changes there and things moving forward, and there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking happening over the course of the next month and a half. I mean, and that's true even if there is no staff turnover, which I do think there's going to be. But if you kept the same staff, you'd still have a ton of moving and shaking because you got 11 or 12 new players probably coming in. Let's go to the text line, 502-414-1450. Reminder, Game Day Men's Health, redefining men's wellness. No shortcuts, just results. Testosterone, peptides, weight loss, sexual performance therapy, and more. Visit GameDayMen'sHealth.com today to find out what they can do for you. You had a UK fan texting at the end of Running with Roman. Did you see that?
Oh, what did they say?
So Kentucky fan here. I don't know if this is for us or for Running with Roman. I listen to you guys on my way home most days. Y'all are talking about PK. I feel like you guys have the same issues at Louisville that we have with Pope at Kentucky.
Okay, yes, I think this was for Will and I.
There's similarities.
It actually has been interesting to follow both teams this year because it seems like if you looked at these seasons as wavelengths and like going up and down, it seems like when Louisville's at its height, Kentucky was at its height. When Louisville was at its worst, Kentucky was at its worst. And the conversation was, Mark Pope said this in a press conference, Pat Kelsey's, it was almost identical.
They're having a nice off. They're taking the pressure off each other constantly.
That's why I believe the whole fight at the beginning of the season didn't exist. Didn't happen. It was fake. This was big. This was big media trying to get back at us. It's not true.
They got together and they're like, we got to buck the nice narrative. We got to just make up something.
We both whipped on Tay Kinney. Now we have to make up a story for it.
It's like all the teen movies about the kids that like agree to lie about having sex.
Oh yeah,
that's what they did. They're like, we have this reputation of being too nice. We don't want to be goody two shoes anymore. We got into a fight over Tay Kinney, and then Tay Kinney's like, I don't want either of you, which also is a teen movie plot. Imagine how different this season would have gone if we'd lost to Kentucky. You want to talk about the season being a negative for a lot of people. Amplify that, multiply it by 2. I think that's what happens if you don't have that win over UK at the beginning of the year. And honestly, on the flip side, Kentucky fans probably a little bit more excited if you've got that win over Louisville, but not. It doesn't change anything dramatically, I think.
Oh, yeah, I get to use it every day. Like I said, every time somebody in Kentucky Roll Call, like over the text line, calls me out, I'm like, gosh, imagine if there was a game this season that would settle this.
Although the game does feel like it was like 5 years ago at this point because it was so early. Boxcar Bob says, I know we lost, but at least we don't have a D puncher on our team. It's true. I'm giving us a B for the season. This isn't the standard or what we were expecting a month in, but we were ranked most of the season, easily made the tournament, and won a tournament game for the first time in 9 years. So a good but not great season. Now it's time to see what Portal Claus delivers us over the next month. I told you guys Jeremy Fears, you're going to hate him. I told you you're going to hate Wes Enos. But Jeremy Fears, you saw what everyone else has been seeing for the last 5 months. Guy's a grade A flopper. He's a great passer, but he's not nearly as good as people want to give him credit for. And then he goes out, he's like, PGU. I'm like, guess, besides Magic Johnson, what point guard have you had be successful in the NBA? Get out of my face. You're not a great player.
He's the epitome of a Tom Izzo-led basketball team.
The second foul that he picked up on Conwell, which he did the exact same thing in their first game, where he just ran into a guy and just completely flopped. That's who he is. That's what he does. The fact that they fell for it the first few possessions, I was like, we're in trouble. And it ends up not being as big of a factor as I was worried it was going to. But, that's 65% of his game is just getting those types of calls. And they'll run into somebody next week, whether it's in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. They'll run into an officiating crew that doesn't fall for it, and he'll be wildly ineffective, and that's how Michigan State will get bounced because he has to have the aid of officials to be as good as he thinks he is.
Can I ask what the Mike Rutherford reaction was to the Zugris flagrant foul?
Oh, I flipped out. I hated it. It's a wind-up. It's a smash.
He's going for the ball.
You see that play 5 times in every single college basketball game ever. It was ridiculous. I'm sorry that he looks like a Greek god. We're typecasting people with big muscles. That's what it is. This is muscle phobia. It's not Zoo's fault that he's jacked. He was playing the ball. It was a terrible call.
I mean, we were down like 8 at that point. But
yeah.
But it created like a 5-point swing, which inevitably basically ended the game.
I mean, I didn't have much hope of us winning at that point either, so I probably wasn't as mad as I would have been if it had been like a tie game. But I still thought it was a ridiculous call. But you knew they were going to, they're looking at it. The announcers are like, that doesn't look like it's, and then Gene Steratore is like, he almost maimed him. Jesus, get out of here.
My favorite point was it after that or before when they were reviewing I forgot who the foul call was on, but they were like, we're looking for a possible flagrant because I think it was Cohen Carr got hit in the head.
And then he hit his own player.
It was his own player. Like,
at least they took like 2 seconds to look at that and were like, all right, nothing there. I was worried that they were going to do something more, but yeah, that was a tough look when they went to the monitor. It was, man, get out of here. Texture says, fellas, we sure have had a lot of bad luck post-Rick. It started with Dang Adele throwing the tournament away against Virginia. I mean, poor Dang. Just like right when anybody thinks about post-Rick era, it's just, come on, Dang. Then Matt came in, and we had a solid first year, and his best team was robbed of playing in the tournament. The next team was also pretty much robbed of the tournament, and then maybe could have won a game possibly. Wheels fell off completely for him after that. Then we hired, I don't even know what that means, Kenny Payne.
I think he meant to type dud.
A dud in Kenny Payne. But heck, even the 5-star freshman he brought in took the NIL money, and his daddy shipped him to Australia instead. Then you get PK, who, like Mac, has a solid first year, but got completely shafted with the tournament seed and draw. And then you top it off with getting your first number 1 point guard ever and him missing 40% of the season, including the tournament. So even though we got the monkey off our back and finally got one tournament win, the conversation, will Michael and his camp basically causing a wasted season? And we have absolutely no idea what's next. No recruits coming in. I don't know what to say. But at this point, I believe in PK and hope he gets us back to the promised land go-karts. That was not the way that I thought that text was going to end.
That was like, what's the meme where there's 2 paths you can take? There's the dark path and there's the light path. I felt like I was expecting them to go down the dark path, and they chose opposite.
Yeah, I mean, it was everything sucks. Nothing's ever going to be good again. But I'm choosing to trust in PK. I believe in him. Let's go. I was like, okay, well.
I know everything's bad and nothing's going well right now at all. But
this guy sucks. We were terrible, but I got all the faith in the world in him. Let's go. Dave, teacher from Jeffersonville, says, that was a sad way to go out, but an acceptable year 2, all things considered. Kelsey is still learning. Roster construction bit us big time. I think he'll do better with everything for year 3. I mostly feel bad for Javon going out with his worst 2 games, but he's a dog. Who do we think returns for next year besides Zoo, of course, and who we might get from the portal? We got to find out who's in the portal first. I didn't see the Javon clip until we got back from my grandmother's thing on Saturday night, and that did kind of break my heart a little bit just because, it's still not the same as a 4-year player from back in the day that he came here as an 18, 19-year-old kid, and you watch him grow and progress, and you feel like you get to know him a little bit, and then he leaves as a 22-year-old man, and you're like, wow. But it's almost as close as you can get now. A player being here for 2 years, kind of being the heart and soul of the team, and I mean, make no bones about it. He played poorly on Saturday. That's a tough matchup for Javon, a front line that's 6'8", 6'9", 6'11", but he missed open looks. He made some bad decisions. He got beat on the other end of the floor a couple of times, and he knew it. And that was the worst part about it all. Like, he's the type of guy who's going to take that personally, and he's going to have a hard time getting over that. And you saw him. I mean, seeing him cry after the game was tough to stomach. I felt really, really bad for him because that kid has been a rock, and he knew that too. He's like, I pride myself on my consistency. I do the same thing every day. And we've talked about for 2 years. Every game you look up and you're like, yeah, Javon's not doing that much. And then you check the box score and he's got 12-9, 14-7. He's just remarkably consistent player. And then 2 points in his last game feels so wildly unfair. But that's basketball, and I definitely felt really bad for him. What do you make of the video of like Michael was crying in the locker room after the game? I didn't have to read the comments on the videos that got posted on Twitter to know exactly what was said. But what was your takeaway?
I have been the defender of Michael Brown Jr. all season. But at the same time, I love that he did it. Hopefully it wasn't fake, but at the same time, I can't imagine how you would cry in a locker room where you had the ability to play and you let your team lose. I understand that, at least from what I've heard, that most of this stuff with Michael is his camp telling him, look, he even said it in his interview before the round of 32 game. He's like, look, I'm waiting for my camp to tell me I can play. They're telling me one thing, this and that. As somebody who grew up playing sports my whole life, if I was in a situation like him and at halftime you see a chance to go out there and make a difference, I would go up there and make a difference, whether my camp told me to or not. He had the opportunity, he didn't take it. So
it's a really tough situation. I would caution because there's some really just super aggressive stuff that's out there. All I would say is, what happens if a few months from now or a year from now, we find out that there was, I don't know, a big time injury to that back, and it was way worse than anybody thought, and everybody was kind of doing him a solid by keeping it quiet because of his NBA draft stock and because of all this stuff. We don't know. We don't know what the situation is, and until it frustrates me as much as anybody. I have the same thoughts when I see him out there going through shoot around, and it's like, can you not just, can you just go out there and give us 50%? Because we'll take it if you could give it to us. But I think any overwhelming extreme takeaway on what happened so far is probably rushed until we have all the facts out there. That's all I'll say. We'll take a break when we come back. More from you guys, lots more for you guys on the Gameday Men's Health text line. We'll check in with YouTube Nation as well, I promise. It's the Rutherford Show on the Big X.
To see if
play this
I
song.
will let you
And I
down.
think I think Trevor started playing it when, like, after bad loss. It always seems so extreme. Like we're talking about losing a basketball game or losing a football game or whatever. And it just, like, we're throwing the radio show to break. It's like, I hurt myself to death. Like, oh, God. It's so much. It's so over the top. But I do laugh every time it happens.
Johnny Cash, I mean, very dramatic man.
He was. Absolutely. It's the 4 o'clock hour of the Mike Rutherford Show, presented by United Mechanical, 1450 96.1 Big X Sports Radio. We'll go back to the Gameday Men's Health text line here momentarily. We do have some YouTube comments as well. You can always follow along on the Big X Sports Radio Louisville YouTube channel. When we're on the air, there's the little live button right there. You can just click on the show. You can also find all of our old episodes there as well if you want to see myself or Matt Childress and feel like you're sitting here with us. That's the way to make it happen. And then during the show, you can chat on the chat there. So let's read some of the text here on the chat. Star Wars says, I hope Michael doesn't consider coming back. Look, I got a bold take here. I would take Michael Brown Jr. back next season if he wanted to come back and play another year. Sophomore Michael would be fine. What if we got Michael back and then he just didn't play at all next year? He's like, still got the back injury. I'm out for the whole year.
I think that I think people wouldn't even be mad at Michael anymore. It would be like, Pat Kelsey, what on earth could you possibly do with our money? Like, imagine you just basically put together two Jaden acquaintances.
If we gave him like $7 million to come back next year and he didn't play a single game, I think we'd have to fire Kelsey. I think that would be it. Card Scott 5 says, what do you think about Donovan Mitchell firing back at the Michael questioners? I'm not surprised. They've got a personal relationship. I think there's more known behind the scenes about what's going on. And look, I'm not acting like I've got all the answers. I'm not. You hear things. I'm not privy to exactly what's going on. I do know that the people closest to him are, like, they think it's the buzz is the injury is more significant than anybody knows. And I'm sure that's what Donovan's been told. I'm sure that's what Donovan's belief is. And he helped kind of facilitate the deal that led Michael to Louisville. They clearly have a close relationship. So I'm not surprised that he's firing back at people that are saying things that he deems as over the top when it comes to Michael. Other token says, I'm more frustrated at our luck than Michael. We've had bad luck this year, sure. Card Scott 5 says, Frew will do great at Mississippi State next year. I can see him going somewhere like that. Jay says, keep Wooly and the NBA Africa kid, who's got a name, Mo Kamara. Tell the rest of the returning players, sayonara, got to get better talent. I want Zoo back. Again, as long as Zoo doesn't want starting center in the ACC type money, I would love for him to be a energy guy off the bench, a guy who helps you rebound. I mean, you want to talk about, I think one of the questions with the staff has been, can they develop talent? Because it didn't seem like Kanai took as much of a step forward this year as we were hoping. Some other guys. Zoo's the one guy that I think you can point to and say, he got a lot better as the year went on. How much better can he get now? Do you agree?
No, I do agree. I mean, it seemed like he was really finding his stride in terms of, like, we already knew he had the energy, and he kind of honed that in. And I felt like he did pretty well playing with guys who are swinging above his weight class when he had to play that small 5 role. I think he did it pretty well making dudes uncomfortable. And, I mean, I think I saw 3,500 Zoo spin moves this season. It seemed like they started to go in at the end of the year. So it was one where we even got offense out of Zoo. So if he wants to come in here and continue to develop, I'm not going to say no ever. But at the same time, I think that he also understands the situation he's in where I think he also knows he can't ask for money like that.
I think you're right.
That's me being optimistic.
Hey, I mean, maybe. I don't know if maybe Michigan State, maybe Tom Izzo is super impressed and is like, hey, here's $1.2 million. Come play for the Spartans. I mean, he went from a guy that I didn't trust to make a wide-open layup in a gym by himself in November to, I mean, he's posting up Jackson Kohler and hitting a right-handed baby hook over him in the first. He scored 6 of our first 10 points or something in that game, hitting push shots. It was crazy.
This was a guy where at the beginning of the season when people were asking Pat Kelsey about the roster, he said, this is the best screener you're ever going to see. And I was like, oh. That's I'm glad.
He did. He screened his ass off for us all year long. He was great at that, and then he became a little bit of a scoring threat towards the end of the season. It was great. I mean, maybe he can get even better next year. Again, I don't want him to be a starter next year, but if he wants to be a guy that we can play 8 to 10 minutes next season, I'm totally good with that. Vibes guy. He's clearly a great culture piece. I would love to have Zoo back. We have a lot of questions about bringing players back. We kind of have tackled all of those. Neb says, do we think Kelsey makes an attempt to recruit guys out of high school in 2027? Having 0 players on our roster for next season seems somewhat concerning, but I understand the landscape has changed. Well, we already do have 2 commits from the 27 class. We've got Ferlandez Wright, who was formerly at Fairdale, and then we've got the Ellis kid.
Your favorite player?
I saw his brother's in the portal, and people were like, let's bring him in. I'm like, he shot 39% from the field and averaged 8 points for a terrible South Carolina team. I'm going to say something that have people watched the OTE recruits in college basketball?
There's one of them that's within our region that people I think that have probably had their eye on.
Jasper Johnson was terrible.
Yeah,
this year. Like the OTE kids have been.
It's a clip farming league.
It's TikTok basketball. It's not real. It's almost like sending these kids somewhere in the prime years of their development to just screw around and get fun highlights to post on Instagram. Isn't the best way to have them ready for the college level or the NBA level. Jasper Johnson sucked. Kai Rogers not good. Bryson Tiller was okay. It took him half the season to get into the mix because he hadn't played basketball for a year. Like we'll see how Tate Kenny does next year. I want us to stay away from the OTE kids. There's too much evidence that this is not the right way to go. And I know we've got one locked in for 2027. If we go after, what's the Ellis kid's brother, Isaac? Is that
I think he's Isaac Ellis.
Who's the one that was at South Carolina this year that had all the clips of him like talking smack to guys that would absolutely kick his ass?
Oh gosh.
Eli
Ellis.
Eli Ellis. If we go after him, I'm going to be like,
wasn't he also an OTE?
Yes,
that's what I thought.
It was it's the only reason why I know these kids exist, because the algorithm thinks I want to see these things on Instagram, and I don't. I have no interest in it. They're not good at basketball.
I mean, the kid went on and made a video about he's reclassifying because he wants money.
For money.
That he literally outwardly said, I'm just doing it because he's like, I don't know if I'm going to play in the NBA. I might as well chase the bag now.
It's a business plan. I mean, it's not dumb, but being out there in the open about it, it kind of says where your priorities lie. And after some of the stuff this year, you would think that Pat Kelsey would want to avoid players that have that type of mentality. But, Isaac was the OTE MVP this year. So yeah. There's that. I mean, you watch those highlights, like it's just him taking threes with nobody around him.
It's almost like they take turns, like, okay, Isaac, these are your 10 possessions in a row, and then you got to give it to Eli next.
I see better defense at the Middletown Y. It's just nobody cares. Nobody's trying out there. It's like an NBA All-Star game on steroids, but played with 16 and 17-year-olds.
Could you imagine what OTE could have been if this was during like the 2010s era when like it was hoop mixtape galore?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it would be. It would just have been the And One tour with 16 and 17-year-olds.
Like imagine Zion's clips from OTE.
Yeah,
he'd be scoring like 95 points a game.
It's like people would say, well, what about LaMelo Ball? It's like LaMelo Ball's high school clips were still like you just shooting from half court in the middle of games. He would have changed nothing about himself playing in the OT. But now all these kids are doing it that need to be getting better, and like they're getting to college and they're getting humbled because they haven't played real basketball in like 2.5 years. But we do have 2 kids committed in the 27 class. I'm excited about Ferlandez Wright. I think he's the type of player that Pat Kelsey needs to be recruiting more of. The Ellis kid, hopefully he can shoot it at a high level for us, even when he's being guarded a little bit. We'll find out. I mean, they're still going after players in the 27 class. They're not. It's not like we don't have a member of the 26 class by design. We tried. We just had a handful of kids.
On Christian Collins.
Whiffed on Christian Collins. He was going to save the day. We put in a late bid on him, and he said thanks but no thanks. Missed on some other players. I do think that there's still a possibility out there that we get a player the same way that we got Kanai a couple of years ago, where we're seeing some coaches get fired that have players that are asking out of their release. The kid from Providence ended up committing to Dayton a couple of days ago. That was a big get for them. We may be able to land somebody like that. I think the staff still has its ears up when it comes to there's still some coaches that maybe have. We'll see what happens there. Hubert Davis in North Carolina, definitely one. What do you make of, two big hires have already happened. Brian Hodgson, not a shocker. We talked about this on Friday. It sounded like he was a done deal for him to go to Providence. I think they made that official yesterday.
Did he just make up the Syracuse stuff?
That's what I've told. Yeah, that it was just that he was never actually offered the job. But who knows? Maybe Syracuse is lying to people too. You never know for sure. But as bad as it is for us to have the season over, imagine being a South Florida fan. It's like we got finally good basketball for the first time in a decade and a half. One of your coaches dies abruptly. It's the saddest thing in the entire world. You hire a guy who may be even better, maybe even a brighter star in the coaching world. You get one good year out of him. You lose in the first round, and he's gone to Providence. It's just it's a tough. And then Jerry McNamara now is going to be the new head coach at Syracuse, which I'm reeling a little bit from that one because in my mind, you're younger than I am. In my mind, he was lighting up the Big East tournament 4 years ago. And now he's the head coach at Syracuse. I don't care for that one bit. He's older than I am, but just by a year. I don't like that at all. But this is what I'm going to have to come to terms with. We'll see how that works out. But they did not go outside the family as originally planned. But two relatively large hires. The Hubert Davis situation now is definitely heating up. There's some other guys, I think, on hot seats that decisions may have to be made.
I literally just saw that Pete Nakos just said that Cincinnati's hiring Jared Calhoun.
Well, I thought that was already done. But is that official now?
He just tweeted like a minute ago. Pete Nakos did.
So okay, it wasn't a vague post, but I said when Pitt announced that Jeff Capel was staying, I think I put the tweet out there saying expect Cincinnati to hire Jared Calhoun. This is how bad it's gotten for Pitt. They really wanted Jared Calhoun, and he told them this is what I was told. He told them, I'm holding out to see what happens at Cincinnati.
Oh, my gosh.
So Pitt in the ACC, Cincinnati's a Big 12 program now, but you're like, we were on top of the world with Jamie Dixon for a few years, and now we got coaches out there saying, yeah, if Cincinnati doesn't – it's like asking a girl for prom, and she's like, I'm still keeping my options open. And so at that point, I think they had a chance to hire Travis Steele from Miami of Ohio, and they wisely, I think, said he didn't do great at Xavier. Maybe that's not – worth overreacting to one good year at Miami, and they just chose to get one more year off Jeff Capel's buyout money and keep him around. When that happened, it was kind of a done deal. I think that Calhoun was going to go to Cincinnati. That's a great hire for them. I think he's fantastic. But we heard good things about him back when he was coaching at Youngstown State, and they were playing us 4 or 5 years ago. He's done a great job. And then they had Wes Miller.
Yeah,
it's Charlotte job.
He's going to be crying at Charlotte now.
Did you watch that video?
I did not watch the video.
It's the worst intro video I've ever seen in my entire life where they have highlights of the AD, the narration is all about the momentum that they've got as a program. The highlights are all from the early 90s when they were UNC Charlotte because they've done nothing as a program over the last 20 years. And then it ends with this awkward 6-second clip of Wes Miller in a Charlotte polo flipping a basketball from one hand to the next and looking like he's about to cry still. Like he's like, the look on his face is, do I need to keep doing this? And someone just retweeted that 6-second clip with the look on your face when you get picked up from the airport in a 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Like that's the program that he's in now. It was a terrible, terrible look, but he's at Charlotte now. We'll see if he can get the ball going for the 49ers. More on the YouTube chat there. Star Wars says suggestions, no more Charleston players. Well, I don't think that's going to be an issue now. We're 3 years removed from Kelsey being at Charleston. We need an on-ball defender like Chucky and a post presence like the Oregon transfer Evans. No more freshman one-and-done guards. We'll see. Again, I would encourage folks not to just completely check out on 5 stars. The 5-star thing worked out pretty well for a lot of teams this year. It just did not work out great for us. It is kind of wild, though, that DeBonson and Peterson both not going to see the second weekend.
The DeBonson one was, look, as a Pacers fan, I'm excited.
He's really good.
If there's a guy out there that you thought this man could will our team to a Sweet 16, I really thought it was AJ DeBonson. That man did everything he possibly could. And
he did.
Couldn't get it done.
I think when they lost, BYU's strategy was we're giving out an absurd amount of money to 3 guys and then hoping that everybody else can be just good enough. And when you lose one of those 3 guys in Richie Saunders, you can still be good. They still had some success down the stretch, but they were never going to be a threat to go deep in the tournament like they hoped they were at the beginning of the year. But Tabonsa was awfully good. I mean,
Well, when he comes back next year, they're going to be able to build around him again.
well, he'll be a Cardinal, so that's,
Mom wants him to stay in college.
we'll take him here. And then the Darren Peterson stat. What was the stat that in the 2 tournament games they played, I think he attempted 37 shots and had 1 assist. Like, that's maybe not the best recipe for success, but it's just a weird year all the way around for Kansas, and still had a chance to win that game yesterday until bells.
I still don't
Save
know
the
if that
day.
team is better with him or without him.
I don't either. I mean, there are. I think there are alternate universes out there where Kansas goes out there and wins the national title, winning every game by double digits, and probably a handful of others where they get beaten in the first round by 35 points. They're just, who knows? Cart Scott 5 says Roman called Fears a fraud, and then Fears scored or assisted on like all of their baskets in the second half. I blame Roman, especially since he's not here. The fraud, see, I think I called him a fraud, and I believe he's a fraud. Roman then, like, it was like the Office episode where they're all doing the joke on the teleconference, and then Andy takes it way too far, and he's like, I'm cutting Phyllis's head off with a chainsaw. That was Roman. He's like, he's a terrible passer. And I was like, okay, well, he's leading the nation in assists, and he's like, he's a dump-off king. And I was like, he's the one thing that I won't knock Jeremy Fears for is his passing ability. He's got great vision. I think every other aspect of his game is dramatically overrated, but he did have, 15 assists?
Yeah, I mean, his vision's impeccable. He can find a dude's nuts from anywhere on the court.
Loves crotches. Loves punching them. Loves kicking them. That's what he does. Flopping everywhere. Not a likable young man. CC Star says, so can Pat start wearing a suit or what, at least to the big games? Guys in suits, coaches in suits, 11-8 so far in the tournament.
Is that where this – I've seen a lot of this on Twitter today. Is that where this is stemming from?
Maybe. Suits are back.
I just woke up this morning and saw like 10, we need Pat Kelsey in a suit tweets.
Suit needs to be back. Speaking of fit checks, Tartan Choice says, suit fit check, Mike last wore this hoodie on February 16th, 2026. This is the first one of these you've done in a while. I think I wore some new stuff last week. I'm surprised it's been that long. I guess I had a lot of U of L stuff over the last month. Midwest Reaction says Pat Kelsey's a good coach. He proved that last year when he had to adjust and get a small number of guys bought in. If he can figure out power conference roster construction, we will be just fine. I think we know beyond the shadow of a doubt now that Pat Kelsey is a good coach. People who are like, this guy sucks, he's terrible. We found out firsthand, if you suck and you're terrible, you don't go to the NCAA tournament. If you suck and you're terrible, you win 8 games, or you win 4 games, or you have losing seasons. We know he's a good coach. What we don't know is if he's a great coach. And I think we all were hoping to find that out beyond the shadow of a doubt this season. We didn't. But there's still enough out there, I think, to believe that he can get there. This is still a learning process for him. He's still making the jump to a high level. Everyone's figuring out the best way to navigate this brave new world of college basketball. He's no different. His staff is no different. And this was another data point. We unfortunately didn't get the positive answer that we wanted. We also didn't get it wasn't like he had all this talent and won 15 games. We had some good moments this year. Not as many as we would have liked, but I think we know he's a good coach. What we don't know is can he be one of the 10 best coaches in college basketball, one of the 5 best coaches in college basketball, because that's the standard here. Rob says, I sure as hell wish we could stop with the Rick wishing. He has said we aren't his top choice. It's the school up the road. He's gone. Go Cods. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's staying at St. John's, but I think we're just comparing. Kelsey says, seen athletic freaks dominate us too many times to overlook it. Go get us one of those one sniper and one physically dominant bigs, and let's roll. We'll know if PK has learned after portal season has ended. If he spends all our money on elite shooters again and nobody else, then we're cooked. I don't think that's going to happen. I know they've already they've looked at big guys. They have a list of players that I know they're going to target, and some of them are the type of player that I think we're looking for. I do think they'll go. You got to have some shooting, though. We can't, unless we're going to be Arizona. We've got to have some outside shooting, and we've lost all of our outside shooting essentially from last year, unless Woolley comes back, and even then, we've lost most of the outside shooting. Card Scott 5 says, I got to be honest, the team fought hard talk down the stretch annoyed me like we weren't really good. Very much annoyed me. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I think
they did.
They did. Yeah, I mean, that's. I think it's just more of an observation.
It's just like analysis.
Yeah. And
I would have much rather, how we went out rather than how Kentucky went out, if that's what we're getting at.
It also didn't help that the kid for Iowa State after the game, he said straight up, we knew they were going to fold when we got up. Like, that was part of our game plan, was just keep kind of like chugging along until we built a lead, and then they'll quit. And he's like, that's exactly what happened. I can't imagine, because that's not a we got the wrong guys type deal. That's a I don't know if the coach can motivate the players regardless of how bought in they are. Like, we know Pat Kelsey can get his guys to play hard. We know he can get them to buy into his system. We heard that all season long. We've seen it for 2 years. I don't know if you know that with Mark Pope in Lexington. They're going to spend $25 more million on this year's roster. I assume they're going to get more of the guys that they target in the portal this year than they did last year. Can he get them to care enough for them to be not just good next year, but a realistic national title contender? That's a valid concern if you're a UK fan right now. You hear a player from another team saying, we knew these guys don't play hard. They were going to quit when we got them down. That's deeply concerning. All right, back to the Gameday Mens Health text line. Texter says, hey, Mike, here are my thoughts on 2 years of data to assess PK's bubblegum card. On offense, when we face Sweet 16 team level competition, our 3-point percentage drops off significantly, and there have been moments we've seen, like the Tennessee game or at the end of the USF game, where we've panicked with the ball and PK hasn't done a great job of adjusting. He needs to find a pivot on offense, but the bigger issue is the defense. Watching Iowa State and St. John's, we're nowhere close to their level of execution on defense. PK can't improve these by sheer will, motivational speaking, and energy alone. He's going to have to broaden his coaching knowledge or hire someone on staff who can do so if he's going to get us to the next level. I think the best strategic pivot is utilizing an aggressive press to create turnovers, since we were one of the worst fast break teams in the tourney this year, and that would create a transition game that would provide the pivot when shots aren't falling and half-court D is deficient. I'm good with that. We saw some success with the press this year. He's not – I thought it was interesting when Kelsey talked about the press at one of his radio shows after we started using it a little bit. He came out and said, I know nothing about pressing. I've never done it as a coach. I don't really believe in it. Peyton Siva had some ideas. We let him kind of be the press coordinator. Like, it's weird that you would coach that much and not at least have been on a staff where you tinkered with a full court press and you had some, I mean, I'm sure he knows like a basic full, guy at the point, 2 guys in the wings, 1 guy at midcourt, like that sort of deal. But I thought it was interesting that he doesn't seem to really believe in full court pressing when it did seem like a potential pivot for a team that really struggled to keep guys in front of them in the half court this season. But we'll see. I mean, I agree that we need more of a philosophical shift on defense because you can't just go out there and beat everybody 95-90. We saw firsthand this year that is not it's not a safe game plan moving forward. We've got to be better defensively if we're going to get to the point where we jump back into that caliber of national title contender. Texter says, CFB here. I want to start by saying thank you to all the players who gave their all to the team this year. If you thought that was a shot at Michael, you're absolutely right. I hope he has a long, healthy career in the NBA going forward, but I can't help but feel like he'll be as irrelevant to my Louisville fandom as Purvis at this point. Thanks for the memories, but I'm not exactly going to give him a standing ovation if he comes back. Secondly, suck it, Mike. I know where this is going. That's right, baby. With Louisville out, that means all attention shifts to baseball, where the Chicago Cubs will crush the hapless Reds all year. Enjoy fighting for your life to earn the 3rd wild card spot, loser. I mean, what trophy did the Cubs hoist last year at the end of the season? They didn't play in the World Series. Get out of my face. I told you they weren't going to win the Central.
The Reds are also running the Pat Kelsey philosophy of just no defense but get 17 runs a game.
Well, and all of your pitchers get hurt. Is Nick Lodolo's finger really blistering again? That's the question. Can he not pitch at 75%? Is Hunter Green? We have like 5 Michaels on the team that nobody knows if they're ever actually hurt or not. Get out of my face, Cubs fan Brian. It says, P.S. by comeback, I mean come back to visit. We all know he's never playing in a college game again. It is a sad byproduct of this whole thing that if Michael does go on to become, I mean, there's a real world where he's as good as Donovan or right there in the conversation with best NBA player to ever come from Louisville, we're almost going to feel like we can't claim him. I mean, we will for recruiting purposes, but nobody's going to, we felt like we missed out on getting the best out of Donovan because he didn't get to play in the tournament in 2016. Granted, he was a reserve on that team. And then in 2017, we got upset in the second round. But at least we had a full season with him playing like a first-team All-ACC guy. And there was never any question about how dedicated he was to Louisville and all that stuff. With Michael, we've got two memories. He helped us beat Kentucky, and he scored 45 points in a game. That's it, right? We don't have any other fond the rest is all negative.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really is tough because when you look at it in the football landscape, there's so many Louisville fans that have, biases elsewhere, but watch almost every Ravens game, right? Because you're rooting for Lamar. And then if you're not an NBA fan, you're still keeping up with Donovan Mitchell's career because you know how much he loves the university. Donovan Mitchell also being a guy who helped you get Michael Brown.
Yeah.
So you hope that maybe that rubs off on Michael a little bit down the road. But at the same time, it does suck. Like you kind of mentioned it earlier that let's say he does. Let's say his back doesn't hurt him anymore. Like he goes through the process and he becomes this NBA All-Star level talent.
It almost makes you more upset.
You're like we had that. He was here. We saw it for 2 games.
People are like, man, it's always going to be one of the biggest what ifs in recent years when it comes to Louisville sports. That sucks.
I will never forget when Grant Skaggs, who's on 3-Man Front with me, and our friend Raymond were over at the Chili's for the Louisville Kentucky game.
Where else would you be?
Of course, where else would I be? I've got to be at Chili's.
We have to go to break, by the way.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I'll continue this afterwards.
We'll continue the Chili's story after the break. Keep it locked. That's what they call a tease in the business. Hour number 3 is on the way next. It's the Rutherford Show here on 1450 96.1 The Big X. Hour of the Mike Rutherford Show, presented by United Mechanical, 1450 96.1 Big X Sports Radio. For college basketball breaking news, we had the Jared Calhoun being hired at Cincinnati news. Now we have the news that via Jeff Goodman of the Field of 68, Arizona State is hiring Randy Bennett away from St. Mary's after being in St. Mary's for 25 years. Took the job in 2001. He's 63 years old. He's headed to ASU. He's going to compete in the Big 12. This is I hate this for St. Mary's because they've been so stable, and it seemed like if anybody was going to stay at one job for the rest of their life besides Mark Few, it was Randy Bennett. But conference realignment. They're getting left behind in a West Coast conference. It's going to be badly diminished with Gonzaga leaving and some other schools leaving. And now he gets to go coach in the Big 12 and see what he can do with a power conference NIL, or at least close to it, because Arizona State doesn't put a lot of money into basketball. But we'll see how that goes here. It's Mike Rutherford and Matt Childress with you on a Monday edition of the show. Still celebrating the women's team's win over Alabama this afternoon. Cards headed to the Sweet 16 for what, a 13th time, I believe, under Jeff Walz. He's been remarkably consistent, but the first time in the last 3 years. Feels good to be back there. They'll take on second-seeded Michigan in that regional semifinal. Also, it's debrief era for the men's basketball season. The long and tough road for the two spotlight sports. The long off season has begun. The countdown until Ole Miss kickoff is on. Let me ask you this. I saw this question floating around today as well. It does feel like the football and men's basketball teams had remarkably similar seasons. We had big dreams for both at the start of the year. They gave us some glimpses in the first half or the early second half of the years that they could have special seasons, and then ultimately it was just kind of like, nothing to be overly upset about, but nothing to really write home about. Which program had the better season, men's basketball or football?
That's a really tough question for me.
They're like identical.
Because on one side you have college basketball, right? Where that's king here in the city of Louisville, but you have Pat Kelsey, who just seemingly gets it done against every single team that he's meant to beat every single time, like in an almost embarrassing fashion. Like oh my gosh, dude's beating these teams by 25 or 30 almost at time in and time out, but can't beat anybody of particular relevance. And then you have Jeff Brom, who you beat the number two team in Miami that ended up being the national runner-up team in the country in the college football playoff championship on their home field. And basically cement yourself a spot in the playoff if you just win they ended up being more difficult, but at that point, the easiest side of your schedule, and you flop out.
Yeah.
I think.
Second time you said flop out today, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well,
just flopping everywhere.
Just flopping everywhere, just like Jeremy Fierce. But I think I'm going football because of solely for the Miami win. I think that's, like, for me at least, under such heat and Jeff Brom that got this season, he still stepped up the play. He did what he had to do, and he basically forced Josh Hurd's hand and said, hey, look, you see what I can do with this roster. I need some more money, man.
Yeah.
And they gave it to him.
Yeah. I went on in sort of like the weirdest Saturday morning I've ever. I went on the Chuck Oliver show in Atlanta, which is just college football. I got a text Thursday night. I do some radio stuff college basketball-wise this time of year because there's limited amount of college basketball people. So you get down to like tier Y, and I'm down there, and people are like, can you just come and talk in like Omaha, Nebraska about? Sure. And I got this, and I had to do like a double take. It's like, can we talk some Louisville football? I was like, yeah. Saturday morning of the second round. So I went on there, and he was kind of asking, like, what's the NIL situation there, and how big of a deal is it? And I was like, that's the whole thing. You notice there was never news about Jeff Brom signing a contract extension because the whole negotiations were about how do we get the money up. And I don't think a lot of people were aware that we were a bottom half team in the ACC when it came to NIL funding in each of the last two seasons. And now, we're not going to be up there with Miami, Clemson, or FSU, but I think we'll be a top half team, maybe like towards the bottom half of the top half, like 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere in that range. But it's enough. We got the money that Jeff feels like he needs to be able to compete. And we'll see what he does from there moving forward. We know in basketball that we are not a bottom half of the ACC team when it comes to NIL funding. We're a top 15, top 10 team nationally when it comes to NIL funding. I give a slight nod to football just because of, fair or unfair, the preseason expectations. We were not a preseason top 25 team in football, and we finished, just outside the top 25? We were number 11 team preseason in basketball, and we're going to finish, if we do finish ranked, right at the back end of the top 25. I know that preseason expectations are flawed a lot of the time, but I think you had bigger expectations for basketball than you did with football this year. Very slight nod for football. I think the Miami win. They both beat Kentucky, which was good. Both got to kind of like the level that you need to say, you can't call it a bad season, but also didn't give us anything overly special, big picture wise, for that season to be remembered as anybody's like favorite team of all time.
I think we also need to remember what Jeff Brom did that with Miller Moss at quarterback.
That's true.
Like he didn't have a Michael Brown Jr.
Well, neither did Pat Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
for 40% of the year. There's that as well. We've got breaking news as well. This is not shocking at all. Jack Karazinski from Bellarmine, who's the leading scorer this year, averaged 21.7 points, has entered the transfer portal. I think everybody kind of knew. I think Doug kind of knew before the season even started. Like, this guy's he's way too good to be here. He's not going to be here after this year. Let's get as much out of him as we can. They did bring back 2 other double-figure scores, which I know was big for them. They're doing the best they can with what they've got. I can't imagine being a low-major coach anymore. It's just you've got to like go out there and see what players at other programs that barely played at all are potentially good and just hope for the best. I mean, Karazinski played 9 games at William & Mary for some reason his sophomore year. Doug went to the film and was like, this guy's way better than that, and he was right, and now Karazinski proved it, and he's going to go get 6 figures from a bigger program, and that's just the nature of the game now. It's tough. Let's go back to the Game Day Men's Health text. A lot of text to get to at 502-414-1450. We have been breaking down the end of the season for the men's team, looking ahead to the future, all of that good stuff, and as you might expect, lots of people have lots of thoughts. Let's get back to you guys. Texter says, come on, Mike. One more time for the boys. Let's show these naysayers Louisville fans can spell at a first-grade level. CARDS, FRAUDS is also acceptable. Is that an attempted slam?
I think so.
From a rival? This guy only texts into the Kentucky shows usually and is like making fun of Kentucky. Is he now... And Indiana. This is a guy from Illinois who's just making fun of all the local teams.
He also, his last 2 texts are both about wrestling.
I did see the wrestler video that he's talking about. Did you see that? The kid from Penn State won the national championship, and he, the top 8 finishers all get to stand on the podium, and he's getting ready to stand at the top spot, and he's shaking everybody's hand, and the kid that he beat from Penn State just wouldn't shake his hand.
I did not see that.
Yeah. Apparently that kid is a very good wrestler too, but just happened to be in the same weight class as an all-time wrestler at the same. So he never lost to anybody else, but he was 0-9 against this kid, and I guess he was just sick of it. Just didn't want to shake his hand. There was also a great non-handshake moment at the end of that Iowa Florida game yesterday, where one of their assistants, who apparently he and Todd Golden have had a thing for years, he makes a fake handshake gesture as they're going through the line. Todd Golden kind of gives him a look. I mean, those coaches were going at it. McCollum and Golden were yelling at each other. Props to McCollum. This is a guy who was coaching in D2 just 2 years ago, and he's out there I'm not going to take any BS from a dude just because you won a national title. Creep. Yelling right back at you.
I mean, for a guy who, won his first ever NCAA tournament game with a 1 national title, he is on the more arrogant side.
Golden?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he won a national championship. He's got a Kevin Ollie-ass resume in the tournament. 0-1, 0-1, 6-0, 0-1. It's a weird thing that he's got going on. But he won that tournament, and he just thought it gave him carte blanche to say whatever he wanted. To be fair, he backed it up a lot. But, he's we played Kentucky 3 times. We didn't lose to him. We weren't losing a single second. That's the way it's supposed to be. He's calling out Alabama. He's if they play Bediako, we don't care. We're going to kick their ass anyway. He was doing a whole lot of just chest thumping this season, and he ended up being the only number 1 seed not to make it to the second weekend. So there's that. Let's see. Someone sent in a screenshot of the final score of the Iowa State game. Yes, Kentucky did lose. We saw that. Oh, is this the headline that's underneath it where it says Kentucky's Jaden Quaintance used manga comics to refuel recovery?
I'm not understanding how those correlate.
I don't either. Are you a manga comics guy, Matt?
I used to read manga, yeah.
Okay.
I got some.
Manga, sorry. My apologies.
I guess either way. You can say either way. But
okay.
Yeah, I used to.
Okay. You and Jaden Quains.
Yeah.
Just hanging out. Texture says, pretty pathetic that 7 of the 8 ACC teams didn't make the second weekend. It's not a great showing for the ACC. It's also embarrassing. You know, the notion or the narrative has been it's Duke and everybody else the last couple of years. And, you know, we're like, hey, don't forget about us. It's a good conference. And Duke's the only team that's made the Sweet 16 each of the last 2 years because they've got that crazy streak. What is it? Every year since 1977, at least one ACC team has made the Sweet 16, which is an outrageous streak. It's nuts. And it's only alive because Duke has done it the last 2 years, and they flirted with it a little bit for TCU before the ref stepped in and said, we can't let this happen. Texture says, with Zion Rose dealing with injury issues to start the baseball season, Louisville has now had its most high-profile player in football, basketball, and baseball miss a chunk of games this year. That means we're due to have no big injuries next year, right? Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but that's exactly right. Zion Rose, who's without question the most hyped player on this team, has, he's played in 4 games so far this year. The other thing, you know, we dealt with it in football. We dealt with it in basketball. We'll see if it becomes more of a deal in baseball as I think people start to pay a little bit more attention with basketball coming to a close. There's never going to be an injury to a player with pro potential that doesn't go hand in hand with some, is he really that hurt? Talk anymore, you know? Like every injury, we never had to deal with this before. It was always when the kid's able to play, he's going to play. Just because that's the way that it's always been. These guys are competitors. They're out there to prove themselves. In this day and age now, any time a player that is viewed as an NBA player or an NFL player or an MLB player is dealing with an injury, and it doesn't seem like he's coming back that quickly, the entire fan base immediately is going to be like, is this an opt-out? Is this a holdout? Is this guy is he worried about the future? Does he care at all about Louisville? That's going to be a thing that I think a lot of programs have to deal with moving forward, and it's not fun. Don't love it. Riddler texted in, Riddler said, sitting here on a Saturday night typing this. You typed this text out on Saturday and then sent it in today? It's impressive. As I reflect on the season, first, I'm encouraged by the progress. Disappointing results relative to preseason expectations for sure, but considering we sunk a large percentage of NIL into MBJ and basically got 1 big game's worth out of impact of him, I can't be too mad at how PK was able to work with this roster and deliver an NCAA tournament win. Second, I'm gutted for Hadley and Conwell. Third, what are we waiting for, Joshy boy? Cue up the banner lawsuit press conference, then take those reparations winnings right on over to portal signings for next year. I'm sure Josh loves being called Joshy boy when you text in. There was a moment yesterday, I don't know if anybody else caught this, where CBS has been one of those networks. Fox does it more than anybody, but CBS has done it a couple of times over the last few years, where they'll have graphics and it's, programs that have won more than 2 national titles, and they'll leave us out because we have the asterisk next to the 2023 or the 2013 one. Yesterday, they had a graphic for the St. John's versus Kansas game that said tournament meetings between 2 coaches that have won multiple national titles, and it was just the 3rd time it had ever happened. And the other 2 both involved Louisville. It was Denny Crum versus Roy Williams or Dean Smith in 97 in the Elite 8, and then Denny Crum versus somebody else in maybe, I can't remember who it was we played. We lost both the games. It was Indiana. Denny Crum versus Bob Knight in 93 in the Sweet 16. And then they had Rick Pitino versus Bill Self yesterday. And I was like, oh, now Rick's won. Can you tell me what schools Rick won those 2 national titles at? Kind of interesting now. We're willing to give him credit for winning multiple national championships. Seems like maybe we should have credit as a program of winning 3 national titles. If Rick's got 2, that means we've got 3. Suck it.
It actually does raise an interesting question: is if a national broadcasting network can address it, why can the university that hasn't not address it?
Because the NCAA says we can't. The NCAA doesn't have any. The NCAA's ruling says we can't make any direct reference to the 2013 national championship. Doesn't say CBS can't, I guess, but
they can have Charles Barkley go on there and slander the NCAA for like 15 minutes on airtime.
They're partners. They're not, slaves to the NCAA, which nobody is anymore, which is why we should put the banner back up. Texas Mike, Angry Cardinal here. Do you have any updates as to where we compare to the rest of the country in NIL? I'm worried that our biggest donors might back off after this year. I've got no – the last update that I got from somebody who would know was weeks ago, and it was that we were on track to have similar NIL for this season. I mean, I don't know how sustainable that is long term. There's a reason why Josh and President Bradley and Larry Benz penned that white paper. They know that we can't keep continuing going into debt like this just to be competitive in sports. Right now, what choice do you have? You've got to find somebody who can pony up that cash. I think we'll be okay. I don't think that we'll be in as advantageous a spot as the schools from the SEC and the Big Ten that are really dedicated to men's basketball, like the Kentuckys of the world. But I think we should have enough to go out there and get players that can field a competitive roster. Now, can you form a championship caliber roster? I don't know. We'll find out. Texas Mike, spill the portal news. Who was the Georgia guy you said we were going to get? Is it Soto Cyril? I would love it, but personally don't think that's it. It's probably Cannon Catchings because he's 6'9" and shoots 35% from three while being from Indiana. Reeks of a Pat Kelsey player. All that aside, you think we could get Tyler Tanner if we threw a bag at him? I don't know. Get me Tyler Tanner, a freak athlete of a big like Cyril, to play the 5 and a crazy athletic 3 and a D wing. We would win a natty.
I would love to get Tyler Tanner.
I mean, everybody would love to. He's an All-American. Of course we would love to get Tyler Tanner.
Like, Tyler Tanner for me was, when I would watch Vanderbilt play this year, I'm like, this is what I want Michael Brown to do. This exact play style. Like, he gets, like, in transition super fast. He focuses on getting downhill and facilitating, but can also shoot when he needs to.
Yeah, he's awesome. Like, but like, this is the way forward for programs, I think. Tyler Tanner was not good as a freshman. He was not a starter. He averaged like 5 points a game. He didn't shoot it well. He showed flashes at time late in the year, but never to the point where you could see him as a guy that could score 20 a game, and he just made a gigantic leap. Like, sophomore breakout stars used to always be a thing, and we're not seeing them nearly as much because players are just transferring from one year to the next. This is why I think, Pat, we've got to focus at least a little bit of our energy in getting players that are 4-star recruits at the back end of the top 100 that you feel like you can have a sophomore breakout star, and then combine those with the players that you bring in from the portal, so you've got the best of both worlds. We don't have any of that going right now. But, I mean, would I like Tyler Tanner? Yeah. I don't think he's going to leave Vandy. We'll find out. If he does, someone's going to pay him like $3.5 million. He's worth that. There's no question about it. But, anybody that's an All-American with eligibility now, Louisville fans are just like, do you think we could get, what would it take to get DeBonza to come back? Can we get Keaton Wagler? Do you think he could?
Can we find an extra year for Flory Badunga?
Yeah, why not? Just bring him in here. I think there's a big man from a school that's still playing that we are very interested in. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But there's talk everywhere, as you would expect. It's talking season. Texture says B- season for me. It would be C+ if the same outcome. If we had the same outcome with a healthy Mike Kell, I think that's fine. Overall, I still have faith in Kelsey. I wouldn't bring anyone back if they ask for an NIL raise except Woolley, and even his should be within reason. I think he'll be very good, but he shouldn't be asking for absurd money. I agree with this. I mean, if Kanai is asking to go from like 100K, 150K to like 400K, I think you've got to say no. I think you've got to be like, look, we love you. You got CARDS tatted on your body. We think you can be a great player here, but you kind of got to go earn that level of money. And if somebody else wants to pay him that, then you got to do what you got to do. But comparing the first 2 years of Patino versus comparing the first 2 years of Kelsey, it's different now. Like, you can have success right out of the gate. We saw Miami was awful last season, and they were really good this year. Virginia was terrible last year. They were really good this year. NC State was god-awful last year. They were good this year. We were beyond terrible 2 years ago, and we turned right into an NCAA tournament team this year. I mean, one thing that I would call, I know the tournament's the end-all, be-all. It's the ultimate judge of everything. We had a better season than Iowa did. We earned a 6 seed. They earned a 9 seed. They played a remarkable game last night against Florida. do we look at that, though, and say just because they went a round further than us and 2 rounds further than we went in PK's first year, do we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that Ben McCollum's a better coach? I mean, I think he might be, but it's dangerous to make sweeping conclusions based on 2 or 3 games in mid-March, even though that is what college basketball basically comes down to. But yeah, the texter's right. We've had more coaches taking over programs that have been struggling, and in year 1, winning multiple games in the tournament than ever before. I think if you want to say this is all part of a program building process, you can, but the process needs to be pretty damn near complete. Like year 3, I think we all said going into we had high expectations, but nobody was saying, even as good as people thought this team was going to be, Final Four or bust, or national title or bust. And anybody who's trying to act like Louisville fans have unrealistic expectations, we got to the point by the end of the season where we're talking about, hey, he's just got to win a game in the tournament. He doesn't make everything great, but given everything that's happened and given the way that this team has not progressed, you got to make sure you win 1, 2 would be great. Nobody was saying, well, Pat Kelsey sucks because if he doesn't go to a Final Four. If you can't show us, though, by year 3 or 4 that you can do that, what are we holding out hope for? Like, the sport's not going to change dramatically moving forward. I don't think anytime soon, at least. We're all playing by the same rules. If you can't get it done after 4 seasons, if you can't show us some glimpse that we're at least on the cusp of being that type of program, what do we have to hold on to? It's a huge offseason for him coming up, and it's a huge season coming for him. Like, that was going to be the case even if we had gone to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 this year. Texture says, from a bird's eye perspective, Kelsey's right on track. Turned around a horrible team first year, did slightly better the next year. Need at least an Elite 8 now. It's so tough to talk in terms like that, too, because we just don't know who's going to be on this team. I mean, what if we go out there and we have a roster that's just like a bunch of okay dudes? You kind of feel like you're defeated before the season even starts. He needs to get some exciting players. Like, we need something that we can latch on to just like we did last year. Would love to get some of the bigger players out of the portal and at least have hope that next year can be even better. Texas, the fans trying to spin the Caleb Glenn comments following the game about how he wanted to stay against PK are ridiculous. A full roster turnover was universally supported when we brought the guy in. Also, there's no reason he can't come back now that he's seen winning basketball culture and the KP stank is gone. Did you see the MBJ interview as they got off the plane? He said he may want to come back. What? No, I did. Have you seen that?
I'm about to try and find it right now.
I have not seen that at all. By the way, a number 8 pick NBA salary is $6.5 million. That's comparable to what we and Adidas shelled out this year. It's not. It's not comparable. We shelled out a lot of money. It was not close to $6.5 million. If he keeps sliding, it's not impossible that he could elect to return to college. Kid was in tears after the game. Personally, don't want the questions and drama unless we get it in contract language that protects us from his dad and Christian Dawkins. I have not seen this at all. I feel pretty comfortable. Are you ready for a Mike Rutherford takes a stand on the radio?
Oh, I can't wait.
I don't think Michael Brown's going to play another game of college basketball.
No.
That's a hot take right there. I stand by it. If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. But I don't buy. A.J. DeBonce's talking about how he'd love to come back. I don't think A.J. DeBonce's playing college basketball either. Don't call me the hot take king for nothing. I'm out there firing all day. Podcast Random Thoughts guy says, you all didn't ask yet, probably, but that's a D- season. The only reason it's not an F is the one win in the dance. Pat has 2 seasons of experience now at this level. Go get dudes. Shooters too, but it's not hard to make a GD balanced roster. I feel like dudes aren't hard to evaluate. Also, why did WGN always have the best programming back in the day? White Sox suck, and so do the Cubs. Lakers suck too, Roman. They're going down like the O'Doyles. Podcast Random Thoughts guy had a rough Monday. D- season. Everybody sucks. Lakers suck. Yeah. We got time for one more. Texas says, can we totally rebuild back to where we were with the money needed? U of L's broke. I think so. For right now. I don't know if it's sustainable long term, but it'd be nice to have a run. I think you can get some people back in the fold that have been holding out. That's the plan, at least. Last one says, I feel like our offense needs a big man like David Padgett. You could throw him the ball in the paint, where he was both an offensive threat to score and had great vision to find the open man beyond the arc. Our only good passing big this year would hang out at the top of the key. I mean, Ollie would hang out in the middle a little bit too, but he couldn't score in the paint. That was the big difference between him and Padgett. David Padgett don't grow on trees, folks. Would love to have a David Padgett. Everybody else would too. He was a beast. Now he's coaching a terrible St. Margaret Mary team. I hope he hears that. Love you, David. Take a break when we come back. Final segment of the day. We'll run through as many of these as we can. We'll make some predictions for the night ahead, and we'll hand things off to Dalton Pence. It's the Rutherford Show. Big X. Doing these shows, every loss just felt so amplified this year for some reason. It was just like, everyone. We also had so few losses the year before, and this team was supposed to be so much better that every game was just some sort of extreme take on how bad these guys were. I won't miss that. I'm not happy the season's over, but it's just a weird year. Just looking back on, I think we're going to look back at these 5 months as just 5 of the weirdest in Louisville basketball history. We thought things were going to get back to normal, And unfortunately, in some ways they did, and in far too many ways they didn't. I also just, as we're doing this, I just see on Twitter, how do you expect me not to click on this headline? A professional cornhole player with no arms and legs has been accused of murder in Charles County.
Is this like the same thing as, remember that guy that like Cat Williams used to like did a whole stand up on, the runner who he had no legs?
But yeah, the what's his name? Who now I'm forgetting about the first. He was the first person to compete in the Olympics as a.
He ended up killing his wife. I think is what it was.
The whole thing. There's a whole documentary on ESPN, which was crazy. But yeah, this guy has no. I mean, I think I had the same question everybody did. I don't really care that much about the murder detail. How is he a professional cornhole player with no arms, no legs? Dayton Weber, professional cornhole player, is accused of fatally shooting 27-year-old Bradrick Michael Wells during an argument in Maryland. Police say Weber shot Wells inside of a car and drove off with the victim's body before it was later found in a yard. He's had his legs and arms amputated when he was 11 months old. This picture of him playing cornhole. All right. Well,
I also only found one thing on the Michael Brown stuff, and it was just a question from WDRB where they asked about his future. He just said that at this moment, I'm just focused on getting healthy. I don't know what my next step is. That's the only thing I could find.
Yeah, if someone else has heard this, let me know, because I feel like that would have been on all of our radars at some point.
Yeah, I couldn't find
sometimes things slip through the cracks.
Getting off the plane interview they're talking about.
It's like nothing is worse than the Donovan Mitchell right after the Michigan loss, where he's like, "I can't wait to win a national championship next year," and like I was like, don't say it if you don't mean it, please." And sure enough, didn't end up coming back. Let's go to the text line. We have a lot of text to get. We're at the 255 mark on the text line when it comes to people texting in today's show. As you would expect, it's a reactionary show. The season's over on the men's basketball side, and people have thoughts. Let's get to as many as we can, and then we'll hand things on. We have Dalton on today, right?
Yes.
5:30 to 7?
Yes.
It's a long day for you.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right.
No, I'm not going to complain of getting to be on air.
As long as you're happy. That's all I care about. 502-414-1450 is the Gameday Mens Health text line. Texter says, are we going to talk about the terrible shot clock work to start the game where we had 20 seconds on the shot clock after getting the tip, amateur hour bleep? That is the rule. I kind of had the same thought. I didn't realize. So anytime the ball is knocked out of bounds in your front court, the shot clock starts at 20 seconds. So that was by the book. I think it's silly that that's a rule even after an opening tip. I mean, it felt insane that there was a shot clock violation and the game clock read 19 minutes and 36 seconds. I was like, how is that even possible? And then I don't think I realized they knocked the ball out of bounds in the front court. Anytime you inbound the ball in the front court off of a turnover, the shot clock starts at 20 seconds because you get 10 seconds to bring the ball in the backcourt. That's why the shot clock starts at 30, and then they're like, well, it doesn't take the time. It's a silly rule. I don't know why it exists, but it does. Texter says this is Trevor. No, that was Trevor's stepdad. Texter says he got talked about right away, but it still hasn't been talked about enough. Ryan Conwell having to sit early due to 2 BS fouls turned the tide of the whole game. It gave them their early lead that we couldn't overcome the rest of the game. If he plays in that time he missed, we almost certainly hit 1 to 2 more threes, and everything else just works better. Not saying we win, but it is closer at half and seems like we went blow for blow with them outside of that period he was out. 2 big calls. Officiating always matters. And I thought both the calls were terrible, especially the Fierce flop on the moving screen. Thankfully, he didn't. I think he only had 1 more foul the rest of the game, so he didn't play in foul trouble at all the second half. But, yeah, you take your best player out of the game, especially when you're dealing with having no point guard already, and it's going to have an effect.
It also just sucks because when we would play against big teams, whether we won or lost, when Ryan hits his first 1 or 2 threes in a game, it almost feels like you just know he's going to have a really great game.
Totally.
And then he immediately had to come out and slow all that. He still had a good game, which was great that he was able to play around that, but it did stunt our growth the rest of the game, unfortunately.
He still played. I don't have the. I want to say he played 30-plus minutes, didn't he?
I think so.
34. So he only missed 6 minutes. He played more minutes than anybody besides Isaac, who, Isaac wasn't terrible in this game. I think a lot of people thought he was going to take a giant step back. 3 of 7 from 3 is about what you expect. Didn't make as much of an impact on this one as he made against South Florida, but you also kind of expect that too.
I feel like they face guarded him a lot in that game, though. They kind of just took him away most of the game.
As they should have. They were basically like, we dare anybody else to beat us. Beat us with challenge threes if you want to. We don't think you can, and we kind of couldn't. Adrian also played well, 17 points, 3 of 6 from 3, 7 of 10 from the field. Nice bounce back from him after kind of a rough outing against South Florida, but just didn't get. I mean, terrible game for Javon to have maybe his worst game as a card, and he said as much. It sucks, but not good timing for it. Also, Frew kind of turned back into a pumpkin. Texture says, I genuinely don't know how you review that Zoo play and call it a flagrant. Even the MSU fans were like, WTF. Yeah, it's weird. Text, if I ever hear the name Ryan Conwell again, it'll be too soon. Are we hating on Ryan Conwell now?
I don't know. I don't know really how to interpret that.
I mean, he's second team All ACC. He wasn't perfect this year, but he averaged 19 points a game. We had problems this year. I don't think he was anywhere on that list.
He's still technically our best player.
Yeah, agreed. Texas Hadley's probably my favorite player this and last year, but he was 50% or better in every game in March. He was 1 for 8 against MSU. If he's 50%, we're basically within a point either way, depending on 2s and 3s. We'll miss him, but just a bad time for a bad shooting performance. He wasn't good. Sucks. Doesn't mean he wasn't a great player for us these last 2 years, but yeah, he very much had a rough March, and I genuinely think that Saturday was his worst game as a Cardinal. And just I hate that he had to go out that way because he was a rock for us. Texas, who ended up being a bigger letdown, Michael Brown or Miller Moss? Well, the expectations were different. Nobody was saying Miller Moss was coming here as a potential top 10 NFL draft pick. I mean, Michael was clearly better than Miller when he was healthy and playing, but the best abilities available.
Michael also had better deep ball, more athletic, on the ground.
Took more hits.
Miller Moss also just not great from behind the arc, unfortunately.
You just hate Miller Moss.
I'm just not a Miller Moss fan.
Texas, Mike, we need off-season rumors about next B-ball season like we need oxygen. You'll get some, I promise. Texas, I can appreciate the team caring and being emotional after the game. However, I need more of that emotion on the court. I need a player who might push the limits a little bit where his teammates have to reel him in. There weren't any dogs on our team. I mean, Zoo tried to fight somebody like every game, it felt like. Got a flagrant in this. I think Zoo fit that category pretty well. But, yeah, I mean, I thought they really competed down the stretch. I thought they really took – we kept waiting for that clicking moment defensively like the team now 2 years ago had in January. And I think it took until the ACC tournament for that to happen. They finally started really competing on the glass and really competing defensively. I don't know how it didn't happen in the first 4 months, but they did it. It just was too little too late at that point. Texas, what's up, Mike? I'm giving the season a C+. Not where we want to be, but we made it a little progress. Now it's on to Portal Madness. How many players do you think we'll keep? Also, cheers, Kentucky fans, to ex-lovers moving on and doing well without us. Also, any good scoops from spring practice? Go Cards. I get nothing really from spring practice. I think people are excited with what they've seen from Lincoln, but you'd expect that to be the case, and that's kind of all I've gotten. We talked about players that we think will come back. Yeah, it was kind of a weekend for all of our exes. Patino and Calipari both looking good, making us feel bad, making us long for the past. Texas, I hate seeing people compare PK's first 2 years to A, the worst coach to ever exist, KP, and B, one of the best coaches to ever exist in Rick. I feel like Chris Mack is a fair comparison. I believe Mack had 44 wins with a first-round exit and canceled tourney. Could have been upset early, who knows. PK deserves some grace, but he should know what needs to be done next year. Okay, who had a better first 2 years, all things considered? Chris Mack or Pat Kelsey?
Oh, gosh.
They're very similar.
I'm going to say Chris Mack. I think that the excitement around the team, even though the revival and stuff happened, I feel like was a lot different. You're coming off of Rick Pitino. The fan base is still there. You're still selling out crowds, and you're bringing in a top 5 roster, a couple of seats. I mean, we had that one. What was it? I think we were 4th and Michigan was 2nd. We played them at home. It was a whiteout game.
Yeah, we ended up being number 1 that year.
Yeah, we ended up being, I think we were like 12-0 before we lost our first game.
Texas Tech.
Chris Mack showed it against, top-tier talent. He obviously flopped out. I just used it for the 3rd time. Sorry about that. I like that phrase. I don't know why, but I'm going to have to say Chris Mack, unfortunately.
I mean, I think it didn't feel like it because, again, we were comparing ourselves to Pitino era had just ended. But Mack's first 2 years were, I think, almost inarguably better than Kelsey's first 2 years. Very similar. Neither team was expected to be an NCAA tournament team in year one. We were a 7 seed under Mack. We were an 8 seed under Kelsey. They both lost in the first round. And then that second team, I know that we kind of remember that as an underachieving team too. And maybe they were because they started off preseason like number 6. But their offense was great. They finished that season number 9 on Ken Palm. And, this year we finished 19th. Who knows what would have happened? I think that team had a chance to win multiple games in the NCAA tournament and also do some damage in the ACC tournament. So we'll never know. But if you're just looking at what we have to go off of, I think Mac's first 2 seasons were better than Kelsey's first 2 seasons. It just didn't feel like it because we were so down when Kelsey took over the program. I'm not saying Pat hasn't done a great job, but maybe makes you a little bit concerned about year 3. Texture says, we spent all but 1 week ranked in the top 25 in the regular season. We finished in the field of 32. PK is 73% on win record. It wasn't the best season, but I think a B- is fair. That's where I am. Tiz, who do you think gets the UNC job? I don't think it's a done deal that they're moving on. I think if I had to bet, I'd say they will, but I don't think that it's like 100%. And I really and truly don't know. Like, same names that are out there, you can just Twitter are the same ones that I've heard, but I've got no idea who's legitimate and who's not. Texas really disappointed in Javon Hadley's season. Averaged 2 points less and 2 less rebounds from last season. After he scored 40 versus Clemson last season, you couldn't tell me he wasn't a first or second team all-conference player. Well, he didn't score 40. He scored, 30?
I think it was 30.
I think he had 31 maybe. It was right around there. It's not shocking that he averaged fewer points and rebounds. He was useless. I mean, we had like 4 capable offensive players 2 years ago, and we weren't as 3-point reliant with that team. He got the ball more. He had more opportunities to score, and then we went out there and we had more bigs help us out. I was surprised the rebounding numbers were so far. 2 less rebounds seems like that could have been better, but I don't think he was a worse player or anything like that. He just was useless. Texture says, I think one thing that helped Kelsey this season were the Sports Illustrated videos being released, specifically the ones where he was yelling at Frew. I think that kind of helps people see that he does get it. We just need to see it translate on the court, of course. I do think that the 2 clips specifically in the last episode, the one where he's yelling at Frew and getting everybody hyped up for the AC tournament game against SMU, and then the last one where he's talking about, like, I get it. Like, I'm not afraid of the expectations. I understand that people aren't as nice to me when we lose games, and I'm fine with that, and I'm going to work my ass off until we win a national title. Like, I think that those both were reassuring for the fan base to hear. But like you said, now it's time to go out there and prove it. Texas, it's BBC season. Don't say that. Let's go baseball cards. Yeah, I mean, off to a rough start. Would have been a lot easier to talk about if they'd put the finishing touches on a series win over a really good North Carolina team. Unfortunately, they blew that one late. I know it's early. I know it's a long baseball season. I think it's very reasonable to be seriously concerned about the pitching. Matt, they can't get anybody out.
No, I mean, there's essentially zero bullpen.
It's Wyatt Danielevich and like a couple dudes at this. Yeah, anybody they bring out of the bullpen is just getting rocked, and not even getting rocked. It's like can't throw strikes. At a certain point, that's going to have to get better if we're even going to be a tournament team. So, yeah, the offense is great. Tate Davis is setting records. If Zion gets healthy, we know how good he is. They've got Crane has been incredible. We know how good Lucas Moore is. Like, we know that they're going to score, but we got to get some pitching going. Texas Frew is too soft. It's Chris the Plumber. Zoo would have to be that 9 or 10 roster spot for me. The rest can go. I think Kanai could be good, but he's had 2 years and shown signs. But I think we need more physicality in the post. Yeah, I agree. Texter says, Mike, big news. A new Mark with a C meme dropped. I saw this earlier. I mean, pictures.
What is this picture?
So he's standing next to the thermostat. It has been cropped out of this picture. It looks like he's receiving sexual pleasure in this picture. We can just say it. But he was holding out. He's team holdout. He doesn't want to turn his air conditioning off for some reason. He always does this. I don't know why he's so against it, but he held out, and now it's back to being cold, so he was excited. Texas, would you take James Scott? Why? I don't know why we always have to bring. If he wanted to come here for extremely cheap and be a backup center, I would take James Scott. James Scott is not the answer to our problems in the post. And we should know that because we had the same problems when he was here and the same complaints when he was here as we've had for the past 5 months. Texas, I'll help you pack, brother. Sananda, I'll buy your plane ticket. Well, that's too much. Texture says, 1, clearly Matt is too young to know hurt is a cover. 2, what do you know about Vietnam?
I did not know. Oh, actually, until producer Keith texted me in the middle of the show, I did not know that was a cover.
Producer Keith knows everything. He's constantly letting us know where we're wrong. Texas says, 1, wait till St. John's find out what Rick's Sweet 16 record is. The 1 still just haunts me, though. The 1 still just. We have a great video when I guess we were all like 22. We all went to Charlotte when Louisville played in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 in 2008. We beat Tennessee in the Sweet 16. We lost to Carolina in the Elite 8. And after the Tennessee game, we were above the little tunnel that the team was walking in. And I had like an old camera. I'm like taking a video. And my buddy's like, ain't no in the Sweet 16, Rick. Ain't no. And like somebody was like, I think he knows. And my buddy just goes, I'm just reminding him. And I still just has that 1 loss in the Sweet 16, which unfortunately will sting forever. Texture says, watching Patino and St. John's move on to the second weekend. That's the D2 Mighty Ducks clip. Go USA. Go get him. Texture says, get Tubby Smith as we've officially Mike, get Tubby Smith as old school defensive coordinator or Brad Stevens type of defense. Why don't we just get Patino to come in and be an assistant and coach defense here? Make it happen. Texture says, since baseball starts Thursday, it's too bad U of L recruiting can't just have the Brewers' luck. Scrap together whoever every single year and then absolutely max out career years when absolutely no data suggests those guys should be that good. In other words, bleep the Brewers. Wish we had that luck factor, which is to be the best in all of organized sports for a decade plus now. At a certain point, it can't just be luck. The Brewers do this every year. They got to be doing something right. I don't know if it's just outright cheating and they haven't gotten caught, or they're just really good at getting the most out of the players that they sign. But every single year, they get the same payroll as the Reds, and they're out there just winning the Central by 8 games. Texas, you feel better about Big Dog, especially after seeing Cloman stink it up this year. I mean, Big Dog's hanging out with Jihad. We're working. I'm just, that's my guy. I'm trying to get Jihad Brown to be a Cardinal. Texas is enjoying the show and his conversion. The comment was made that Louisville is basketball first. I'm football first by a decent margin, and 1 or 2 friends are too. I wonder if the old basketball first still holds. Looking forward to football news this week. Yeah, I mean, I think that Louisville is still viewed widely and probably accurately as a basketball school that also recognizes that football steers the ship for every major athletic program in college sports. You can't just be bad at football. It is a must to at least be good-ish in football if you want to have an overall successful athletic program. Having said that, I think it would take a lengthy, sustained period of success in football coinciding with basketball falling off the face of the earth again for us to become a football school. I mean, Indiana just won the freaking national championship in football. I still think that they're a basketball school. I think their fans would still call them I mean, you just watched the football team reach the pinnacle of college sports. There's nothing bigger than the football national championship in college sports. And Indiana fans have been pissy for the last month and a half because their basketball team hasn't been good. If that's Alabama or whoever, and their basketball team is just what they don't care. Like they're focused on spring practice. You've got generations of Indiana fans that have prioritized basketball. It takes a long time for that to get sort of weeded out. So yeah, I think that as much as we all love football, all of us know or have friends or have family members that are like, they don't really pay that much attention to football, but they get really into basketball when it comes around. I think that that's also starting to become less of a thing because the basketball program is having a hard time bringing everybody back into the fold. But it would take a long time of a lot of football success for us to be known as a football school. Texture says, I can't answer that. Texas, think I'm the only guy in the fan base who watched the SI doc and came away having less faith in Kelsey. PK looking into the camera with cokehead energy, pounding his fist about knowing the expectations does nothing for me. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. Just because it's nonstop energy doesn't mean it's not fake juice. Kelsey has been a Division I head coach for 14 years. Learning on the job happened 7 years ago. Ben McCollum took some D2 dudes and handled Florida from start to finish. How many lifetimes would it take Kelsey to get by a front court like Florida's? Sparty played their C game, and they were up 13 with under 5 minutes to play. Everyone else can buy the stock. I'm selling. Here's to being wrong. I don't think it's a terrible take to have. It might be wrong, but maybe this all is fake juice. Maybe energy can only take you so far. He clearly is a great motivator. He clearly is a guy that gets his players all on the same page. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a big, bad basketball brain or have multiple guys on your staff who do, you're not going to win championships. You're just not. It's got to be both.
I think he generally just needs to iron out his total staff. Like, I think that he, like you just mentioned it, kind of, that it can't all just be Pat Kelsey running the ship. I think he needs genuine basketball minds on the defensive side, on even for simple things like on just play calling and this and that. Like, I think he needs multiple pieces, and then he can be the culture guy and people bought in. I think that right now he's just got a lot of inexperience and a lot of young guys on that staff that are also coming up in the Power 4 game just like he is, and it's showing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of people brought it up during the season. You had a staff this year that had one guy with any sort of power conference experience before getting to Louisville, and that was Ronnie Hamilton, who this was his first year here. Cloman, Cassidy, Carr, Jermaine Okebu, they all were guys that had never coached at a level above Charleston or Winthrop. Peyton Siva is, his first year as a full-time assistant. He's still a little green when it comes to this sort of thing. You didn't have a proven, time-tested, like, I've done it at the highest possible level and had success, I know how this works type guy on the staff. And maybe that didn't have as much of an effect as some people would like to claim, or maybe it does. We don't know. But I think everybody would feel comfortable if you did bring in a highly respected national assistant who maybe could help with some of the things that seem to be affecting the staff in a negative way. Texture says we're gonna have to wrap this up in just a second. I hope we don't face Mr. Full Court Press in the Players Era Festival this November. If they have it, I mean, like half the teams didn't even get paid yet. And now they're expanding the field from 18 to 32 next year. I'm not 100% sure we're going to go to Vegas for that. James Scott's too skinny in his position and can easily get pushed around to wish him back. Texas says, you need to throw some shade at Seth Davis on Twitter since it seemed like he picked every game incorrectly yesterday. How is this dude a professional analyst? Yeah, I mean, he was also, Seth hasn't kept his job for this many years because he's right about stuff. He toes the company line, carries a lot of water. It's why I've already had my running with Seth Davis for March. I get one a year, and then I got to back off and just let Seth do Seth stuff because he's Seth. Like, whatever. He's just, nothing changes. Can be wrong about everything. Nobody cares. Last one we have time for. Is Kelsey or Braum going to be under more postseason pressure this upcoming season? I mean,
I want to say Kelsey, but I think it's closer than a lot of people would say.
Postseason pressure, though, it depends on what postseason they get to. Is it pressure for Jeff? It's pressure to make the playoff or at least be close. For Kelsey, obviously, you expect to get to the tournament. It's what can you do from there. I mean, if Jeff just makes the playoff, that's sort of the equivalent, I feel like, of Kelsey going to an Elite Eight. Is that fair?
No, I think so.
Maybe not a Final Four. A Final Four would be like winning a game or two in the playoff. I mean, if you win 2 games, you do go to the Final Four in football. But I think there's more pressure overall on Kelsey year 3 because that's the program that we have expectations to win national titles. Obviously, we'd love to do it in football, but it's never been an expectation here. He's got to show us that he can get to that point, and we need to step in the right direction. All right, we're going to get out of here. Let's NIT. Oh, we don't have any NIT tonight. What do we have? NBA?
We don't have any basketball for at least college tonight, I don't think.
Lakers Pistons. Roman and his crew are on the road taking on Detroit. They're a 1.5-point road favorite. Who you got, who you got, Matt?
Roman has the Lakers. I also have the Lakers.
Every time I pick the Lakers, they lose. Give me the Pistons. Covering straight up, winning the game. All right, we got Dalton Penson here for the next 90 minutes, so keep it locked right here. I'm back tomorrow at 2:30. I will talk to you then. Go Cards.
Go Cards.
The show was brought to you by United Mechanical.